Free agency has come and gone. The big window has closed here just a few weeks after the new NFL league season has begun. Andy, JP back with you here on the Just Beavin podcast. And just like we did last offseason, we will break down all the major free agency moves, all the big trades for all NFL teams, as we are now less than a month away from the NFL draft. JP, like I said, still some veteran names out there, still a few notable guys on the market, but a bulk of the free agents have been taken off the market, and we've seen some pretty big trades as well.
Yeah, there were some big trades. I don't know what my expectations were. Maybe it was just the fact that I was expecting the Bears to make a splash with Hendrickson or Crosby, but it felt like this free agency was lackluster. Then we started going, or I started going through some of the trades and signings that happened, and I guess a little more happened than I had led myself to believe. I think it was just disappointment that we didn't land Crosby.
Yeah, and that's something we'll talk about. Obviously, we're going to hit every single team, but JP and I being Bears guys and our audience mostly being Bears fans, we're going to really hammer that segment home. And as we look at who has gone where, I think a big theme in free agency, at least what I was able to gather before running through our list here, was guys getting deals. Like the NFL money is just absurd now, I think is what I've
It,
been. It's kind of turning into the NBA of a fact.
that portion of it, and then when you actually like break down the fine tune details of it, like someone can sign for $400 million and only 60 of it is guaranteed. Like
Yeah.
the Mike Evans contract is one of the craziest contracts I've seen in recent history. I don't remember. I got the terms written down when we get to the 49ers, but it's like
Yeah.
48 mil, but only 13 is guaranteed or something. It's crazy where we're at with the guaranteed money versus not guaranteed.
It's wacky. And then we talk restructures and all that, teams having to get below the threshold before free agency opened. We're going to start here with the AFC East, I do believe. We're going to go AFC to NFC based on this incredible document we have created here. JP did pretty much all of the heavy lifting, and thanking him for that. Was able to help out and contribute where I could, but obviously that being just like what we had last year. And you mentioned Trey Hendrickson, JP. We're actually going to start in the AFC North, and we'll go right off the rip. Baltimore really only making two notable deals, one involving a former friend of us as Bears fans, but there is Trey Hendrickson, 4 years, $112 million. They talk about the guarantees, $60 million fully guaranteed in that deal. So just over half of what's total in that contract. And a lot of controversy behind this signing because of the falling out of the Max Crosby trade.
Yeah, I think the fit's phenomenal. They needed pass rushers bad. They couldn't keep scraping by with Kyle Van Noy, and I don't even remember the other guy. I know he signed for the vet minimum
Did they have
somewhere
Clowney
else.
at
They
some
did have
point?
Clowney 2 years ago. I want to say he was a
2 years ago.
Cowboy last year. I want to say he was a Clowney was a Cowboy last year. That could be inaccurate, but I'm pretty sure that's where he was last year. But yeah, but I mean, just like we talked about with the guaranteed money, I get Hendrickson. He's already what is he 34, 33, 32, somewhere in that age range. So give a loading the money up front. Really a 2 year deal with and if he doesn't show any regression, then fine. Maybe you let him play out year three. He's definitely not making all 4 years in Baltimore with the 112 million. I could
Yeah.
almost guarantee that, but definitely something that the Ravens needed to do to bolster the pass rush.
So Clowney was a Cowboy last year. He was a Panther in 24, and he was a Raven the year before that. And I wasn't far fetched on the Ravens and Clowney because I Googled to check where he played last year. And the first article that popped up was Clowney is interested in joining Baltimore. I kid you not. I kid you not. That's the first thing. Hendrickson is 31. He'll turn 32 in
31.
December. But still, yeah, I mean, it's a great deal for Baltimore. They get to keep their draft picks. And I know obviously people are going to have judgment on their front office, the way they operate. It's kind of a shady move to pull out of the Crosby deal for. I mean, they're going to claim medical reasons, but it's all stuff they knew going in. I think without inferring, JP and I obviously don't know. We're not in the front office. We're not in the NFL landscape like that. But I think a lot of fans and a lot of people have been able to jump to conclusions that that's how they did things. And you look at their cap; they always have to move around Lamar Jackson's contract, and because of all the moving around, they lost Tyler Linderbaum, which we'll talk about later. The draft has always been a big thing for Baltimore. They've never been the team to make massive moves like Hendrickson in free agency. And when they do make a massive move like this, they don't have much money left to make any other moves. That's why we only have two listed here. But yes, Hendrickson's the exact big time playmaker they need the front seven on the defensive line in terms of generating pressure and getting to the quarterback. We go to Hendrickson's old team in Cincinnati, a few notable deals here, and good for the Bengals, at least addressing the defensive side of the ball. I feel like this has been such a major issue in the Joe Burrow era of just basically ignoring that side, putting all their resources, all their draft picks, all their money offensively. They do bring back Orlando Brown on a 2-year, $32 million deal to protect Burrow's blind side. Given the state of the offensive tackle market and free agency, I know Brown's tenure so far in Cincinnati has been rather up and down. I think that's a pretty good value on a guy like him, a guy of his name and what he's capable of doing and where he's been before. And right away, we now talk about the inflated market. And obviously, for those who know, the Bears didn't sign a big name edge rusher. They didn't put a lot of money there, partially because they've already invested a lot of money in that position between Sweat and Odangbo. Boye Mafe, good player, but 20 mil a year, JP, that seems a bit rich for my liking.
Yeah, and granted, he was a little injured last year, but I mean, he only had 2 sacks, and the year before that, he only had 6 sacks. So I don't know. We saw the same kind of fallout after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. It felt like everybody and their mother on that defensive line got paid big contracts. Now, granted, Mafe made, I think Josh Sweat, he got paid 100 million, didn't he, or something crazy like that? Either
Yeah, it was a
either way
lot.
though, Mafe didn't get quite that money, but yeah, it still feels a little rich for me.
And then Jonathan Allen, we kind of talked about him in our mock draft video, trying to figure out what we want the Bengals to do at 10. Josh Sweat was a 4-year, $76 million contract to Arizona last year. We mentioned Allen, fine deal. He's just old. Like
Yeah.
that's the big gripe with him. And Brian Cook, I think that's and there you mention it. You look at the contract details on Brian Cook, 3 years, 40 million, but 18 mil of that. So nearly half of that contract is coming in the first year. So really weird. I'll say, like I said, even though Allen's old, it's a lot of money for Mafe. You at least have to applaud Cincinnati's front office for investing in the defensive side of the ball. Now, Maffe's coming in essentially as the Hendrickson replacement, losing him off the edge, and you're hoping to get that similar type of production. I don't know. I mean, since they did fine, this is another example of a team that really needs to win in the draft, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mentioned it, I believe, in the most recent mock draft video, or maybe it might have been the first mock draft video we did, but I will be betting a substantial amount on the Bengals to miss the playoffs again this year. This defense is god awful. I don't care what kind of money they spent. And yeah, I mean, it would take them to hit on every single pick in the draft this year because last year's draft, I don't there wasn't a single piece that was worth anything that was getting any playing time from that draft. Their front office is a joke. Frankly, their coaching staff's a joke too. So
Yeah, the Shamar Stewart signing or draft pick rather, not a good start, not a good indicator as to what that draft class was going to look like. We moved to Cleveland, JP, and 4 of the 5 signings are on the offensive line, bringing Titus Howard along with Tevin Jenkins, bringing him back. Zion Johnson's a pretty hefty contract for the former Chargers offensive guard, and Elgin Jenkins, the offensive interior option from Green Bay after they let him go. This isn't shocking, seeing as we've mentioned this on every mock draft video we've done for Cleveland, and anytime we've talked about the Browns this offseason on this podcast, all 5 offensive linemen were pending free agents. So it is no surprise that they are pretty much putting everything they have in terms of capital into the O line entering year 1 of the Todd Monken era.
yeah, and two things that actually just came to my mind that I want to point out for everyone else. Players like Tevin Jenkins and Durham Smythe, I only felt the need to include for the Bears fans out there, the
Former
Bears
Bears, yeah.
sickos. I included if there was a former Bear player, even dating back to guys like Kendall Vildor, if they're somewhere, they may I put them on this list just so we can keep slight tabs on what they're up to. And then the other thing is the Browns signed like 12 guys, but we obviously have not included every single player that every single team signed, just the ones that we felt important enough that deserve being discussed. We're not going to be talking about the third string right guard or the fourth string outside linebacker or a rotational D tackle. If we felt like they were a substantial name and someone who's going to make an impact somewhere, then or like I said, for the Bears sickos, they were included on this list. With that said, I actually think the Browns did a good job addressing the offensive line. It's mind-boggling to me that Tevin Jenkins couldn't find somewhere to go be a starter. I understand with the injury history that there's questions all over, but for 10 games of the season, I mean, he was a very solid starter in Chicago. He didn't get any run last year. Even when they had an injury, he was the seventh man up, not the sixth guy. So that was questionable. The Zion Johnson signing felt a little rich for me, but
It's a lot of
I
money.
thought they got I felt they got a great deal on the Elton Jenkins. If they move him back to where he's comfortable instead of playing him at center, I think that could really pay off. And then the Titus Howard trade, I loved it until they gave him $63 million on an extension. That was a little rich for me as well. And Quincy Williams, you're getting a starting linebacker to plug in next to Schlesinger because JOK probably is never going to play football again. And I thought 9 million for a solid linebacker. That's about the market value, if anything, a little bit under. So I like the Quincy Williams signing.
Yeah, between JOK, which that situation sucks as a whole. That really is hard. And on top of losing Devin Bush in free agency as well. Yeah, I still think Cleveland in the draft, they have 2 first-round picks. They absolutely have to take a tackle with one. But I think with Titus, obviously having Titus Howard, you don't need to take multiple. I saw PFF's mock the other day of them taking 2 tackles, which it was rather interesting. They can take one here, and as we know as Bears fans, thank you, Drew Dahlman, we now need a center. This is a good center class, and not maybe not a good center class, but this is a center class where you look in the second day, third day, you could find a guy to try and plug and play and try to start on your offensive line. You mentioned Jenkins moving him away from the center position. I think that's exactly what they need to do. And if they do that, you have both your guards, Jenkins and Johnson. You draft a tackle, you draft a center, and hey, you have yourself an offensive line to start the season. It's not going to be flashy, not sexy for Cleveland by any means, but I think this is exactly what they had to do, and they executed pretty well in it. A couple of bigger contracts, but hey, as we've learned in the NFL, sometimes you got to overpay to get what you want. So I can't say I have too many issues, and we don't have anything else. I'm good to move on to Pittsburgh.
As my
And the Steelers, shout out Wade Worthington, one of our Beaver Fest members, a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Looking at what they did, their biggest move, Michael Pittman, acquiring him from the Colts, along with a 7th-round pick in the draft this year in exchange for a 6th-round pick. And they gave him a 3-year, $59 million extension. On top of that, this was within minutes of Indy, and we're going to talk about Alec Pierce, but this was within minutes of them signing him, locking him up. Obviously, you're not going to put that much money into your receiver room. And at the same time, those two probably weren't going to coexist and play those roles for the amount of money that they were making. So they're now Pittsburgh's paying a lot of money for their 2 wide receivers for whoever's under center this year. It's still a great question out in the Steel City with Pittman and Metcalf getting a lot of money there. Rico Dowdle, a really good season last year in Carolina. He now comes over as well as JP mentioned. We're going to put some former Bears in here. Travis Homer is now a Pittsburgh Steeler. Up front, bringing back Cameron Hayward. Would feel really weird to see him in a jersey that's not a Steelers uniform at this point. Sebastian Joseph Day, that guy just might play forever, quite literally. He's going to be around
That's how it
for
feels.
a long, long time with a lot of teams. Jamel Dean, I want to talk about this one, JP. And I know people have mixed opinions on him. I feel like for his level of play, that's not a bad deal overall. Maybe at the back end of that contract, it might be rough, but at least on the front end, depending on how they structure the money, average of 12 mil a year for a quality starting corner in this league who at his best, you know what you're getting out of him. I don't find that value to be awful at all.
No, and there was clearly a lack of secondary play with Darius Slay being pretty useless last year and obviously getting cut in the middle of the year. The emergence, I want to say emergence with an asterisk on it, of Joey Porter there. He did have his best season. The penalties are still there. The penalties are still a problem, but Joey Porter does look like he's going to turn into a top 12 corner in the league at the bare minimum. Yeah, and Dean had a great season last year, and why am I blanking on it?
Tampa?
New England. Yeah, no, I thought he was. Oh yeah. I'm thinking
Was he
of
in Tampa? Oh, no,
he
I'm
was in
thinking.
Tampa. I'm thinking of Carlton Davis in New
Ah,
England. Jamel Dean coming from Tampa. Another good year from him. He's been a solid corner. He's been like a Montez Sweat, but at corner, like a 1B.
I like that. Yeah.
You never want him to be your top corner, but if he's your second best corner, that's a damn good corner too. They bring back Asante Samuel, who probably is just going to be a depth piece. I really don't think he's going to be starting in the nickel or outside corner or anything. And yeah, I mean, then they bring our boy Jaquan Brisker, which is honestly kind of interesting because I believe Deshaun Elliott is still there, and it would not shock me if Brisker is not the starter. It seemed like Brisker didn't really have a market like at all.
None of
He
these
was a
guys
late
did.
signing. Yeah, he was a late signing in free agency, and honestly, for 5.5 million, I would have brought him back.
I'll say this, and I know I don't want to talk too much about the Bears before we get to the Bears, but for those fans freaking out about Brisker walking or leaving, Byard, Wright, all signed 1-year deals, not a lot of money there. guys, there's a reason why it took them a while. There's a reason why it took Jaquan Brisker a while to find a contract. If he would have signed earlier, if he could have signed earlier, he would have signed earlier. That's what all these guys do. Trust me, he wasn't waiting for the right opportunity. It's money season for these guys, especially a guy like Kwani who's coming off his rookie contract. He's looking to get paid, and unfortunately couldn't really do so. So found that interesting. And yeah, this is, and I will say, I'll throw in, I know we talked about having the former Bears on here. For some of the teams I did in the NFC, I threw in some fantasy guys as well, guys who have had some lore in Beaver Fest that probably mean absolutely nothing to the rest of the league. So that's the AFC North. I would say everyone did pretty well. I don't think there was any super questionable money decisions given out, except maybe what Cleveland did on the offensive line, and Baltimore didn't really do much. So there wasn't much to take away from what we saw in the North in terms of red flags, glaring red flags. And as we move to the AFC South, there was a lot of money given out in this division, specifically in Indy with some of their deals. But we look to Houston, and right away, JP, we go off the rip with a former Bear, David Montgomery, now on his third NFL team in the Texans.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm curious how they're going to use. It seemed like they really liked Marks last year, and although I really don't see much running value from Marks, he looked all right in the run game. Obviously, they brought Chubb in last year. That didn't work at all. Figured you got to go get someone who can run the ball on the goal line. No more Damian Pierce. Why not go get Knuckles, who's been known? If you need 4 yards, you'll get 4 yards. If you need 9 yards, you'll get 4 yards, and that's kind of how Montgomery is.
Yeah, Dalton Schultz, that's a nice contract for him on a 1 year bring back. Braden Smith, I can't say I know much about him, but good for him. 2 years, 25 million. That's not a slouch. They put a lot of money into this offensive line. Ed Ingram getting over 23 guaranteed. Wyatt Teller, one of those aforementioned 5 rounds free agent offensive linemen hitting the market. I want to talk about this Danielle Hunter signing, man. I know 1 year deals in sports are whatever because they come off the books immediately. I don't care who you are. Danielle Hunter, is he really worth $40.5 million for one season?
Yeah, I don't know. That's that's some big money. I don't know. I'm gonna have to fact check Hunter's age off the top of my head. But what's he going on? Year three, I believe now. In he's 31, and that's a 1 year extension. I don't know when his deal was supposed to run dry, but my guess would be that now brings him into 2028 would be my guess for that. But either way, that's a lot of money for a
Yeah.
31-year-old. I guess the Super Bowl window is right now before they have to pay big money to Stroud, but yeah, it's a lot of money to give to what's going to be a 32-year-old. So
Yeah. And then Dominique Robinson, shout out Dom Rob, Bears legend, preseason legend. Was such a fan favorite pick in terms of he had all the physical traits possible to potentially succeed, but he could just never figure it out for the life of him. I remember there was a Bears behind the scene documentary, 1920 football drive. Love that on YouTube. I'm a sucker for stuff like that. And I think he kind of said, like, going into the season, they had him in a one on one. And he's like, yeah, I kind of realized that I need to put it together now. Otherwise, I don't know what my future looks like in this league. He gets another contract with another organization. I think that's a plus at the end of the day. Reed Blankenship leaving Philly. I don't know. You see a lot of Houston gave out a lot more money than I think I originally realized. JP entering this free agency, other than the massive contract for Hunter, what else have you gathered here from what the Texans did?
they're clearly they clearly went through free agency to build the offensive line. Braden Smith's going to slide in over from Indy as a starting right tackle would be my guess. You get Trent Brown, who can pretty much play anywhere on the line besides center. You bring him in for depth on a relatively good contract to be your sixth swingman. Ed Ingram comes back on an extension there, and Wyatt Teller for that money, I think is 100. He obviously hasn't been what he used to be, but he also hasn't been healthy. If you can, maybe you just needed to change the scenery, go play some winning football, get the hell out of Cleveland. Uh, that could be a sneaky good signing. And then the same reason you mentioned about Sebastian Joseph Day, that's exactly why I included Sheldon Rankins. I swear to God, this
Yes,
guy's been in. I swear to God, I don't even know how old he is, but I swear he's been in the league since I could even speak. Like it feels like Sheldon Rankins has been in the league for so long. So I felt the need to include him. He's 31, so he's really not even that old.
that's
It
not
just
that
feels like
old.
it just feels like he's been around for forever. And then I included Kayemi Fairbaum simply because he's now the highest paid kicker in the league.
Yeah, good for him. That's awesome as well. A lot of money clearly he doesn't have to spend, like you said, in the day and age of needing to pay Stroud. I know some people are saying, don't pay Stroud. Trades are, they got to pay Stroud, man. I know that was a brutal, brutal showing in the playoffs, but not that you're stuck with him, but you're stuck with him. Like that has to be your guy. You spent the number 2 overall pick in the draft on him. That's got to be your guy in this spot. Indy giving money to Daniel Jones, 2 years, 88 million. Do we think he's going to play at all this year? And if so, 50 million in year 1 is nuts.
Yeah, it does not. It really does not seem like he's going to play. And if he does, it'll be what, October when he comes back would be my guess. So they're going to have to throw out. I don't even know who's going to start at that point because it sounds like Richardson's going to get traded. So Riley Leonard, are they going to roll Riley Leonard for 6 games before Daniel Jones comes back?
They're not
I
going to
don't.
draft another kid at that point.
Yeah, you might as well just roll with Riley Leonard. I don't know. I don't know if Daniel Jones is going to be ready. That'll definitely be something we monitor, and I'm sure it'll get brought up in the Just Beavin, summer episodes and whatnot. But it's a lot of money for 1 year, especially if you only get him for 12 games. I mean, I think he earned an extension. He played himself into an extension, but 50
Oh, for
million
sure.
in one
It's a
year,
lot of money.
holy smokes.
I think that's why we're coming up on I said at the top of the show, NFL's money's turning into NBA money. Man, I remember I think it was that was that KD summer, right? 2016, or it may even been the summer before that, where we got guys like Tyler Johnson getting 14 million a year. I
Alan
remember that.
Crabb
Yeah, Alan Crabb,
got
Marcin
114 million. I'll
Gortat,
never forget that.
Festus Ezeli, like guys like that getting just insane money. This is kind of what this feels like now in the NFL. Obviously, Daniel Jones is not the equivalent of Marcin Gortat or Festus Ezeli in the NBA, but it's kind of what the shift is what we're seeing. Alec Pierce, we mentioned him and talked about the Michael Pittman trade in the AFC North. JP and I, Northwest suburbs of Chicago guys. Alec Pierce grew up in Glen Ellen, went to Glenbard West. So that's pretty cool seeing a local guy get $84 million guaranteed. His younger brother's about to go play at Purdue as well. It's a good time to be in the Pierce family. I know JP not huge on that. None of us were really huge on that. All of us being Big Ten guys, no Purdue fans, but JP especially being an IU fan. That is brutal because his younger brother's a really good basketball player. But yeah, man, I want to talk. This is the largest free agent contract ever given out to a wide receiver. He's a good player. And you look at what he put up last year, he had 1,000 yards on 50 catches, which when you break that down, that's pretty impressive to have a 1,000 yard season with that few grabs. That still feels like a lot of money to give to this guy, though, who proved that he could be a player, but I don't know if he's proved enough in this league to get a $114 million deal.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because they obviously get rid of Pittman and they pay Pierce all this money. You're obviously not paying a guy you only want to run vertical routes, $114 million. So they're going to start using Pierce in the underneath stuff. And who knows? I mean, the advanced stats say he gets good separation and all this and all that, but it'll be interesting to see if that's actually what his skill set's capable of. I mean, 1,000 yards on only 47 catches,
Oh, even less than
solid
50.
numbers,
Wow. Yeah.
solid numbers. But then again, I mean, his average, I don't know what his A dot was, but I'm sure it was over 20 yards if I had to guess. His average depth of target had to be well over 20 yards if I had to guess. And so, I mean, a lot of those catches are going for big chunk plays. So it'll be interesting to see with the uptick in targets. He'll probably be around 70 catches would be my guess, 70, 75 catches this year. How big of a spike the yards go up, or if it really was a product of all those vertical routes. But I mean, the biggest free agent contract in history. This again goes back to your point with the NBA money. I don't think Pierce is worth the biggest contract in free agency history, but I guess you got to do what you got to do. And if he breaks out, we'll be having this conversation, in November, talking about holy cow, what a contract for the Colts. I mean,
Yeah. How
taking a
smart is
risk on
Chris
the guy, but
Ballard? Yeah.
but wow, did it pay off? But
Yeah, Arden Key then 2 years, 20 million, some edge help for the Colts. And like I said, I think in today's day and age, the edge rushing market, you saw what Boy Mafe got, and you're going to see what other edge rushers of that caliber got and that tier got in free agency. I'll take $10 million a year for a guy like Key. It's good value. We're looking at value as well in terms of what guys are bringing in. Nick Westbrook Akine, shout out Utah McCain, shout out the league. It's a Beaver Fest legend. And Mr. Biles, Jonathan Owens, former Chicago Bear, getting $1.4 million near the league minimum to stay in the Midwest and play some games at Lucas Oil this season. This is back-to-back years of doing this episode for free agency. where the Jacksonville Jaguars have had one singular significant signing. De'Ami Brown is the guy we talked about last year, and how fitting Monteric Brown is who we're going to talk about this year. I don't have much. I don't even know much about this guy. I'll keep it a buck, and JP may have more. Good deal for him. 3 years, 33 million in Jacksonville. Getting help in that secondary. This was a great offense last year under first year head coach Liam Cohen, and that unit was clicking. I know there's been a lot of talks of if is Brian Thomas Jr. on the trade block. They have a plethora of wide receivers after bringing in Jacoby Myers and what to make of Travis Hunter, but they get a solid piece here in the secondary from what little I know about Brown at a good rate.
Yeah, I should have wrote extension. Or
Oh,
re-signed
extension.
rather. Yeah,
Yeah.
or re-signed rather. They brought him back. I mean, yeah, last year he kind of had a breakout year. I mean, breakout with asterisks. I mean, not a guy with big expectations, and ended up playing himself into the CB2 role. And honestly, who knows? Could be more to come. He's only 26 years old, so. But of all their signings, I mean, if anyone wants to argue with us, go look for yourself. This was really the only notable signing here. But yeah, I mean, just bringing back a familiar face to a team who still needs some secondary help. So we'll see what they do in the draft, or if Travis Hunter moves there full time.
No Beaverfest meme guys or former Bears to note for Jacksonville. We do have a former Bear leading us off with Tennessee. Ty McCain, you are such a lucky guy to have Mitch Trubisky on your football team for the next 2 years. And that's a great deal for a high quality backup. One of the best backup quarterbacks you're going to have in all of football. And I guess we do have a Beaverfest guy here, but he actually signed a contract for significant money in Wan'Dale Robinson. Jermaine Johnson, JP's talked a lot about that trade through our mock draft so far, joining on the outside. John Franklin Myers, that's a lot of money. And I want to talk about him in particular. We'll talk about all these guys. But JFM is a guy that JP and I both originally really liked as a potential guy for the Bears to go after and target. I think we looked at him, what was it, 15 to 17 million a year would have been our sweet spot for JFM. He ends up getting 21. JP, that's a lot of money for John Franklin Myers. Good player, but I can't say I would have given that much money to him.
Yeah, I probably would have been a little disappointed in Poles if that was what he handed out. Now, I would not have been shocked if Poles gave that kind of money out to John Franklin Myers. Yeah, I mean, he's a 30-year-old player. He's obviously an extremely valuable three tech. He could play out on the edge in certain formations, and he can be a pass rushing specialist on the inside. Yeah, I mean, they're paying a guy. Saleh obviously knows what he wants on the defensive end. They're paying guys to get exactly what they want. I mean, he had 8 sacks as a defensive tackle, which is good to see. But yeah, the money was a little rich for me. I'm pro John Franklin Myers. He's a great player. Titans got a good player. I just did not want to pay that kind of money.
And then they threw a ton of money into their secondary. Cordell Flott, 3 years, 45, getting 32 guaranteed. That's north of 70 mil guaranteed between both him and Alontae Taylor, who's getting 20 million as well. Hey, but the Titans had the money to spend. We knew this. We knew this going in. They had the most cap. I think they had the most cap available out of any team entering the new league year. It's a big reason why we saw a lot of mock drafts as Bears fans of Chicago sending DJ Moore to Tennessee. Obviously, that didn't happen. And we're going to talk about his landing spot a little later in the show. Not because Tennessee was ready to win, just because Tennessee had all the money to spend. Same thing with a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, who we'll also talk about later in the show. Man, Tennessee could overpay a guy like that as well. When you're in situations like this, we've seen Chicago, we've seen other teams do this the last couple of years. When the money's there to spend, man, you just got to spend it. It's all about timing. And for these guys like Flott and Taylor, they probably got more money here than they would have got in other spots, but they benefited from a team that was, greedy, spending heavy, and had a lot of money to spend.
Yeah, I think the Flott contract was really rich for me. That was clearly came over from New York. That was clearly a Dable vouch. He's only 24 or 25. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's young. So, I mean, maybe he's still blooming into something. I like Alontae Taylor, but even that felt a little rich for me. But I mean, like we've said, they have the money to spend. You have a cap floor in the NFL. You have to spend your money. Why not throw that money there? By the time they're ready to compete, both these guys will probably be cut candidates. That'll probably save them a lot of money going into that third year of their contract. And honestly, same with Franklin Myers. So yeah, and then one more thing, I just got to reiterate this. The Jermaine Johnson trade was freaking terrible. That was so terrible. I could not believe they gave up straight up just Tavondre Sweat, a clearly impactful nose tackle. I know Saleh does not use nose tackles at all in his scheme, but I mean, you're telling me you couldn't have got anything better for a guy who's clearly becoming one of the top run-stopping nose tackles in football? Seems a little mind-boggling to me. The guaranteed money on the Wan'Dale Robinson contract, though, money. That was a good contract.
Yeah, shout out Wandale. Shout out you, Cam Crook. I know you traded him to Beeve, but you'll always be the number one Wandale supporter in our eyes. We move to the AFC East. We'll be able to get a couple of teams from the East done before we hit a fast intermission. And we'll start right off the rip with Buffalo. This might be the only team we get in before the intermission because of how much we have to say about them. There it is. DJ Moore, acquired from the Bears, along with the fifth round pick, 165 overall in the draft this year, for a second round pick. We'll talk about the Bears side of this when we get there. But for DJ Moore, man, I'm happy that he's able to go to a team like Buffalo and have a quarterback like Josh Allen. He doesn't go to a team, with all due respect, Ty, like Tennessee or Vegas or other spots that they were potentially mocking him to. He's right back in a playoff push. He's right back in pursuit of a Super Bowl. And I'm happy that he's in a situation like this.
Yeah, right after the news broke, I believe I came in the chat and said I will be openly rooting for the Bills next year. If the Bears don't win it, I'm hoping it's the Bills or the Ravens. But I would love to see DJ Moore get a ring. It hurt to see him go, but a necessity.
Yeah, a couple of centers. They signed both Lloyd Cushenberry and McGovern. Bring back McGovern, so Cushenberry is just going to serve as depth. Cool to see Dawson Knox back. He's a fan favorite there, and I know they were celebrating him following his last home game a year ago, not knowing if he would be back with Kincaid and all the other weapons. It's a decent deal for all parties there. D. Alford, it's a good deal for him, and a veteran corner who's been at multiple stops in this league. Hamlin, Stone, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, former Bear, 6 million. And I want to talk about in particular CJ Gardner-Johnson and Bradley Chubb before we get to our intermission. I like CJ Gardner-Johnson, was open him coming back to the Bears on a 1 year deal as a depth piece. 6 million is too much. I know I'm sounding like I'm pinching pennies here on 1 year deals, and they're not really worth that much. I would have given him 3, maybe 4. I know that sounds really cheap, but that's what I would have done for Gardner-Johnson based on what I saw last year.
Yeah, you're essentially paying a Swiss Army knife who is never only going to start unless you have injuries, and you're going to plug and play. You're going to have a very high floor and an extremely low ceiling with CJ Gardner-Johnson. Do not expect him to play any man defense whatsoever because whoever he's guarding will run right by him. That was a little rich for me as well. Like you mentioned, I would have paid 4 mil, and yeah, it's 2 million, but that 2 million adds up quick when you keep compounding the 2 million.
And like go to your draft pool and other things like that. It's every dollar matters. We've learned that. Bradley Chubb, though, this guy is like knocking on retirement's door just based on his body not being able to hold up and poor performance because of that. He just got himself a contract of nearly $30 million guaranteed. And obviously, JP and I text back and forth a lot during the offseason. We're in our group chats and all these things. This was a particular non-Bears signing that I sent to him, and I was stunned because obviously the Bears were in on a lot of these veteran edges. And I was like, maybe Chubb would try him out. I know some people, I know JP wasn't as huge on the Bears bringing in Chubb as I was, but I'm like, any name at this point to try and get pressure on the quarterback. I would have fired Ryan Poles on the spot if he gave Chubb this contract. This is ridiculous. This is horrible.
Yeah, I got to give credit to Chubb. Pre-injury
Good for him.
In 2023, I want to preface that. In 2023, he was good. I think he had 12 sacks or something, and then he misses the entire 2024 season. Even misses a little bit of the 2025 season, comes back and gets 8.5 sacks. So, good for him. But holy fucking shit. Yes, I'm sorry. It's that bad with Bean. He is a god-awful GM. This is, I've been waiting to get to Chubb so I could just go on a quick rant. Way too much money for a guy who, you'll be lucky. Swear to God, you'll be lucky if Chubb gets 10 games. He'll look good in those 10 games. He really will. Promise he will. But you'll be lucky if he even gets 10 games. You go back last season, they give Joey Bosa $15 million to play 14 snaps a game and only come in on third downs. They paid Von Miller or traded for Von Miller and gave him ridiculous money to come over and do the same exact thing. We get to D. Alford, who is serious. I don't even know his grades off the top of my head, and PFF is not the end all be all, not at all. He's got to be in the bottom 20 corners ranked in he is.
I was trying to be nice. I try to be on the positive side of that signing.
If we stumble upon if any Falcon fan stumbles upon this, please come in here and talk about how dog shit D. Alford is. And my favorite thing to rant about, because I don't understand it, DeMar Hamlin. I'm sorry what happened to you. I hope the Bills take care of you for the rest of your life, man. You are not a good football player. You probably should not be back on the Bills. $2 million, have at it. If you're a Bills fan, I pray to God he does not get in the game because holy shit. And then you go and sign Geno Stone, who the amount of Bengals fans I've seen TikTok just compilations of how dog shit Geno Smith is. Doesn't tackle. He just throws his. He does that when Eddie Jackson was old and would just throw his body into them and
Shoulders,
bounce off.
yeah.
That's Geno Stone to a freaking T. This defense is gonna suck if Jim Leonard cannot pull a rabbit out of a hat with what Bean has put together. I don't know how that guy got promoted. He hit gold on Josh Allen and has rode that into the sunset. Bean is awful. Get him out of here.
Dude, I'm looking at their starting secondary right now. The CJ's in the nickel. They don't even have Alford starting, which if you're giving all that money, this is ESPN, keep in mind. But if Alford's not, he should be starting over CJ. Your right corner is Dorian Strong, left corner Christian Benford, Cole Bishop, and Geno Stone are your safeties. Yeah, this secondary is going to get lit up. I was trying to be nice with the Alford signing, but I knew you were going to come in and just absolutely rip it to shreds. We'll take a quick intermission. We got the rest of the AFC East and then the finale of the AFC here on the Just Beavin podcast. Following an incredible rant by JP on the Bills offseason to close out first part of our show here today, let's look at the Miami Dolphins in a bit of a different spot, JP. They have a new signal caller. They have a new everything. John Eric Sullivan, the new general manager coming over for Green Bay, not Matt LaFleur, Matt LaFleur's defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, now the head coach there, and they bring over their backup quarterback for the last few seasons, Malik Willis, on a 3-year, $67 million deal, 45 of it guaranteed. A lot going on there. But other than that, just one-year signings, Tutu Atwell, Josh Uche, Willie Gay Jr., all south of $2 million. The reason for this is because of how much money they're eating on that Tua deal. Tua no longer a member of the Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm honestly curious what they're going to do in the draft. At this point in time, what are they wheeling out? Tutu Atwell, Malik Washington, and yep,
That's
exactly.
it, man. That's it.
I honestly don't even know who else is there. I know they have the other Washington. They drafted the one from Virginia and the one from USC, but I can't recall the other one off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean it's a lot of money for Willis, who really has proven absolutely nothing as a
Taj
starter.
Washington is who you're looking for out of
There it
USC.
is.
They have Jalen Tolbert as well and Terrace
They
Marshall.
signed Jalen Tolbert. That's right. Terrace Mark. Jesus.
This bad. They have to
Forgotten
draft a
toys.
receiver at some point. At some point in this draft, they have 2 first rounders.
See,
Maybe
and
not then, but not
it would
then.
almost be weird to use pick 30 on a wide receiver because there's just no chance that any of those guys. I mean, if you draft Concepcion at 30, you might as well have kept Waddle. He's 10 times better than Concepcion, and they kind of have the same
No.
play style. So, I mean, it would feel weird if they spent pick 30 on receiver, but I don't know. They have so many holes, quite frankly, but it was a lot of money for Willis, in my opinion, who has proven nothing as a starter outside of succeeding in Matt LaFleur's offense, which it seems like it's pretty easy to do. They signed another meaningless edge. I forgot who off the top of my head, but I mean their defensive line is just it's just pitiful. The defense in itself in itself is just the whole roster outside of the offensive line and A Chain is pretty buns, and even the offensive line it is really only a 2-man army. So the Dolphins are going to be one ugly football team. There's going to be a lot of eyes on Willis and what he can do. And even if he fails, I fear we're headed towards a Justin Fields type arc where people are going to be like, oh, well, it's because he was on the Dolphins and they were set up to fail anyways. And, Malik Willis will be 32 and people will still be believing in him. So,
Yeah, they didn't have much money to spend. This is a horrible spot to be in. Like
I cannot believe Hafley took that job. I mean, I don't know if he was going to get another offer, but.
Yeah, this is the dog days are coming. If they're not here already, they're coming. Like this is if it wasn't for the Jets being in this division, I would book it as this is a last place team. This is definitely a bottom five team in the league. I don't think we can get out of that. But unfortunately, with the Jets being a thing and still being around, I hope to God the Jets are better than the Dolphins this year based on what we've seen on paper. But we've learned that nothing is a given with the New York Jets franchise. You can never assume anything anymore. But yeah, this is brutal for Miami, and it's going to be a long couple of years. And who knows? Halfley may not even see the other side of this quote unquote rebuild or whatever it is that's going on here. Who knows how long the leash is for him? I can't imagine it's longer than 2 to 3 years. I don't think they're going to give him. Obviously, this year there's going to be a lot of grace, but who knows? It really just depends on where they go in the draft. They have 2 first-round picks. But like you said, it wouldn't make sense to 30 to go with the receiver. I know with they had pick 11 and they still have pick 11. Both of our first 2 mocks, one mock we went defensive back, the other we went to offensive tackle. They need everything. They really do need everything, and they got to really hit good on the first draft class for Sullivan as their general manager. We move from a team in the dumpster to a team coming off an AFC championship in the New England Patriots, and they had some money to spend. Not often do you see teams coming off Super Bowl appearances where they have the money to give out, they have the money to shell out. And that's exactly what the Pats did. Elijah Vera Tucker, that's a lot of money to help Drake May out on the offensive line. We saw that Seattle, granted, incredible defense, Mike McDonald's front seven, that whole unit, it's just awesome. Reason why they won the whole thing last year. He couldn't handle all that pressure that he was getting in the Super Bowl. It's a lot of money for Romeo Dobbs, and we're going to get more into depth with that. Draymond Jones adding some help in that second level. Shout out former Bear Kindle Vildor. I had no idea he signed with the Patriots until now. And we brought up Kevin Byard earlier on in the show as a guy leaving Chicago. He's now with the Pats as well. JP, a couple 1 year deals, but New England was able to make some quote unquote bigger splash signings in terms of the money they gave out. Although I don't want to classify Romeo Dobbs as a big splash guy. He's not worth that much money in my opinion.
No, I think that was a gross overpay. It was projected that he was going to get this kind of money too, which I don't know. I feel like, I mean, Packers fans were upset he was leaving. I would have, if the Packers would have paid him that, I'd have
I would have
been
been thrilled.
super happy. That would have been an awesome contract for us to go up against.
Now, does he always get big plays against us? Yes. But
Yeah,
do you figure if he signs that deal in Green Bay, that limits the Packers as to what else they can do financially? So it's a lot of money to give a guy like
it is, and you're paying. I mean, maybe that's. I hate to sound like a broken record, but maybe that's just where the money's headed now. I mean, that's what you're paying a wide receiver to. The problem is the Patriots don't even have a wide receiver one. The Elijah Vera Tucker signing, I loved it because they need help. They need help, and you're going to get 12 really good games out of AVT. He's going to get hurt. It's just what's going to happen, but you're going to get 12 really good games. The one thing that this signifies for me is Vrabel is sticking to his guns, and Campbell is not moving inside at any point in
that. Yeah.
time. And he started off as a good tackle, and as the season progressed and guys got film on him, the short arms. I mean, everyone mentioned it during the Super Bowl. It was just
He
he
had a
was just
bad
getting
Super
knocked
Bowl.
back, and he was not even getting arms on the edges coming at him, and it's a real problem. And maybe they're gonna coach it up this year and figure out how to get around that. But the move to guard should probably come sooner rather than later for Campbell, and the AVT signing kind of pushes that down, in
It,
my opinion.
at least a year. I think it's year to year on the tackle class and where the Patriots are drafting and how they grade out each tackle. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. Let's say this time next year, regardless of where they're picking in the first round, we're going to assume they're picking in the 20s, late 20s, based on what they put together this past year. Obviously, 2025 isn't indicative of what 2026 is going to bring, but it appears they've put themselves in a position, given their quarterback and their coaching staff, that they're going to be, fighting deep into the playoffs for years to come. It's all about the board and the class, and maybe next year's tackle class is a bit more favorable to them in that spot. We round out with the New York Jets, and there is just a bunch of different pieces here, JP. A reunion for Geno Smith, Brees Hall getting the franchise tag, the other end of that Jermaine Johnson trade. Where do you want to start?
We can start with Geno Smith coming back over from the Raiders. A lot of people are out on Geno for good reason. He looked like absolute dookie that last year in Seattle, and he looked like absolute. I mean, a bottom three quarterback in Vegas. I still think that solid quarterback from Seattle is still in there. everything was wrong with the Raiders. Chip Kelly was a moronic hire. I still think Geno can be serviceable. I'm not saying they're going to be world beaters and Geno's going to look like a Pro Bowl quarterback again. I just think Geno will be a lot better than they'll win some games, and Geno will be a reason that they are winning some games.
I feel for Brees Hall. I'd trade him to Crook, and this is the exact reason why I traded him to Crook. I knew he was going to get tagged this year. And for those saying, well, he could end up on a different team next year. And yes, that's very possible. But in the world of Beaverfest, I don't have time to waste on waiting on Brees Hall to hopefully get somewhere else. And the clock's only ticking on him. I know he's 24, 25. He's a young dude, but I mean, man, we're wasting prime years of his career here. He's only, he's not going to be any younger moving forward. That's how life works. But just in general, this felt inevitable. You feel for him because guys like Gardner have gotten out. Other, young Jets players in the past have gotten out when they've wanted or when they've needed to. And it just appears they aren't willing to let Brees Hall walk out that door yet. I want to keep hammering home this the edge market money. Joseph Asai getting 12 a year, 22 guaranteed. I mean, I guess in the grand scheme, that's not horrible, but still, I don't know if that's a guy that's worth. Maybe it's not the per year money on Asai I'm as bent about. It's the total money. You're giving him a 3-year contract north of 30 million total. I just don't know how to feel.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who Cincinnati is letting walk, that should be indicative of the defensive market. And considering they paid, oh my God, we literally were just talking,
Mafe.
Boy Mafe, that almost the same amount. Can't say I love it. Now the Kingsley Mbaré one, I thought for 1 year, 10 mil, you got the money, spend it. You're getting a great run defender there. I actually really like that deal, but the Joseph Osai deal, I just did not like at all. And then yeah, I mean, I already ranted about Sweat coming over from the Titans. I absolutely love that move for the Jets and gets Glenn a nose tackle.
Yeah, they got Onyemata too up front. Just a lot of money. They have the money to give, and rightfully so. No moves that are going to make you go, holy cow, other than the Sweat trade and bringing back Hall. But similar, Jets had the money. They spent it. They hit the positions they need to. They too have 2 first-round picks. They're picking
Oh my
number 2
God, I just
overall.
realized I left off. Oh, no, that's right. I didn't scroll all the way down. Okay. Phew.
Oh, there's more.
There is. I
There
thought
we go.
because I was like, oh my God, where is Bears cornerback Nashawn Wright? But I just didn't scroll down. My apologies, everyone.
And they got Minka Fitzpatrick, so there's some more add to the secondary. Andre Cisco, is he a DB? It's a really bad test of my football knowledge
Oh,
here.
I'm sorry. He's a safety.
That's what I thought. Okay, good. So there's all your secondary additions. Good for Shawnee. He got the exact same contract that Jaquan Brisker got. So I think if anything, that's a worse look for Brisker than Wright, a guy who's a practice squatter for the entirety of his NFL career. He played really well in Dennis Allen's defense, went to Al Harris University, and gets rewarded with a nice payday on a 1-year deal and an opportunity to potentially set the market for him again next year. Joining a team that had 0 interceptions. The Jets had 0. I don't know how that's possible.
I don't either.
With a
First team ever.
defensive-minded head coach
it
like Aaron
wasn't
Glenn?
possible. It wasn't possible until first team ever. It literally wasn't possible until last year.
You just think that, and I'm just going to talk for real quick football sense. You're playing enough games, tip balls at the line. Something's got to fall in the lap of somebody, man. Like the odds. I obviously you said it's never happened before, but just you got to looking at the 1 in whatever. What are the odds that even is a possibility? Crazy. Hopefully he can bring some more turnover luck there. And I don't even know what to think of Minka Fitzpatrick anymore.
Yeah,
man.
I kind of fell asleep at the wheel doing the Jets. Apparently, I also left out the fact that they extended him for 3 years, $40 million or something like that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I forgot about the extension too.
Yeah, so my apologies. He is 33 years old and got a 3-year extension, he's 30 years old, I think, and he's extended till he's 33 now. Yeah, I mean they only gave up a 7th for Minka, which I guess is fine. You now get your safety, who's probably going to play like Brian Branch did in the Lions regime, and he's just going to kind of play in the box and rather than lurking. But Minka at this stage in time, he's just all right. He's not a world beater. He's never going to be a Pro Bowler again. But he's still a solid player. So I mean, like you said, they've got the money to give. So whatever.
A very Jets-like offseason, I think, is the best way to sum that up. We go from the AFC East to the AFC West, and not as much here. And we only have only one page, but Relatively short. We look at Denver, JP. It's the Jalen Waddle trade. That's everything here. And we talked about Miami getting pick number 30 back, and now they have 2 first-round picks. And what are they going to do there? This is a rare instance. In sports in general, not just football, hockey, and everything else. I'm so anti-trading first-round picks, and I know there's a time and place to do so, and there's a rhyme and reason to do so. But I firmly believe in the NFL, especially, you don't see first-round picks moved every day. And even the elite teams, like you look at teams like Seattle, New England, teams in the Super Bowl this past year, I think every team that appeared in the AFC or NFC championship game held on to their first round pick. Like most playoff teams did this year. It doesn't happen often, but I think this is a rare case of Denver moving the 30th pick and some other draft capital. I think this was extremely necessary, and I'd say well done on their end. I think it benefited both parties.
Yeah, I actually find it kind of funny. Both Super Bowl teams kept their picks, and then the losers in the previous round both dumped their picks to go all
Yeah.
in, which is kind of funny when the Rams go get McDuffie, which we'll talk about eventually, and then yeah, the Broncos go get Waddle, and like we said though, with the Dolphins, I mean the Broncos, much like the Dolphins, I think need wide receiver help. I think Waddle's better than all the prospects, unless Omar Cooper has a magical fall to 30. I would
Which
rather have
doesn't look
Waddle.
apparent at this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I would rather have Waddle than, Boston, Concepcion, Bernard, Surratt, whatever the consensus is going to be as the wide receiver five. Um, yeah, I didn't hate it really, and then they only moved back. What is that? 21 picks from 90 to 111, and gave up an extra fourth. I actually
Yep.
really didn't hate it for the Broncos, but like you said, now the Waddle contract's not cheap, so now I know they had a lot of money freed up from the Russ contract, but now there's a lot of money tied up in a guy who's also extremely injury prone. It'll be interesting though. I'm curious how Knicks's play style is going to work with Waddle. But I actually am expecting big things from Waddle this year.
Yeah, them getting a pick along with Waddle is huge. I don't think people understand that to that much of an extent. Like it's essentially like they only lost one draft pick in this deal, and that's or one non-first round pick out of the 2 extra assets they dealt. That's pretty massive at the end of the day. J.K. Dobbins returns 2 years, 20 million, 8 guaranteed. I'm more intrigued that's only the guarantee because that makes it a harder deal to dump off of after this year. That running back room is confusing as hell. Uh, neither, I mean, he had a solid year, but I don't really think him or Harvey, they were both okay, but neither one of them were elite. I don't think either one of them separated themselves. I mean, they were able to find their way to the AFC title game with that rushing attack, but I just don't know if, I mean, I guess who else were you going to bring in as an argument you can make, but I don't really know. And then adding Singleton to that linebacker room, a spot in the defense. They don't have many holes in that defense, but they could use some help at linebacker. That's a pretty good value deal on those two. Other than that, I don't have much else to add with the Broncos.
Likewise.
In Kansas City, a lot of fun names here. We'll start with Justin Fields and his fourth team now in 4 years, seventh round or the was it the sixth round pick in next year's draft
Oh,
from the
I
Jets,
apologize.
and that'll be fun. He may start. He may get an opportunity. Depending, I think Mahomes will be back in time, but there's that alternate universe where Mahomes isn't ready to go right away, and Justin Fields has to start in an Andy Reid offense. I thought it would have been ironic if Nagy was still with the Chiefs.
I didn't even think about that.
I don't think if Nagy was still there, I don't think they would have traded for Fields. If I'm going to be
I
completely
highly
honest,
doubt it.
I don't think they would have. But that would have been funny at the end of the day. Good for Kenneth Walker. Obviously, I'm a Michigan State fan, and I enjoyed his run as 1 year at Sparty. This is the prime example of going off in the playoffs, winning Super Bowl MVP, and absolutely capitalizing on your money and on your value. Is Kenneth Walker worth 15 million a year, 28 guaranteed? Absolutely not. There's not a single world where he is. But am I going to knock the guy for going out and getting paid? Also, absolutely not. Good for him, man. That's great. And honestly, if there's a place where he can become the guy and be the true number one back in Kansas City, who knows? They've never really used this running back position as a position where they go deplete resources with a high draft pick or a lot of money. I know that the Clyde Edwards-Helaire experiment did not go well many moons ago when they drafted him, but are you intrigued at all to see what this could look like with all of this?
I don't know how it's going to be used. Honestly, I'm curious because the thing with Walker was he technically was not even the featured back in Seattle this year. When both backs were healthy. Now again, it's very marginal, but Sharp was like 50.8% of carries and Walker was like 48.8, and
It
then
was a true committee.
yeah, and
George
Walker
Kalani.
wasn't even, yeah, was like a 1.1 or something stupid like that. But my point being that technically Charb was getting more carries than Walker was getting. Walker hasn't been the primary running back since, like you brought up, his time in college when he was Michigan State. They paid him like he is going to be a featured back getting 225 carries in today's NFL. It'll be curious, and I'll be curious to watch. And then his health is the other thing. It's like he's never healthy. So this was a rich contract for me. I know the Chiefs have been needing a running back since literally forever. Since honestly, Kareem Hunt before he
Kareem
kicked the
Hunt,
girl in
yeah.
the elevator. So it's a lot of money,
Yeah.
but if it works, it works.
Yeah, and then Tyquan Thornton coming back. It's a good deal for him, man. It's a similar situation. I don't know if Tyquan Thornton's worth 14
I
million over two
honestly,
years.
I honestly only included it because if we were having this conversation a year ago, we'd be like, "What the hell? Why are they giving Tyquan Thornton money?" And now it's like, you know what?
Yeah.
Tyquan Thornton has played himself into being a vertical threat in the NFL.
And I think he also was a big help for Brady when he beat Zippy this past fantasy season, if
He
my memory
was.
serves. Got to get the shots in when we can. Got to get the shots in when we can. Travis Kelsey, is that right? 54 million. It was a
That is
3-year
correct.
re-signing for him.
That is
Wow. All
correct.
right. So a lot of questions of him retiring after this year. I guess that's put down and put behind. I guess not a lot of money year one though, so that's going to incentivize him to play beyond just this upcoming season. I love that we live in a world where Kyrus Tonga is getting $21 million
So
over three
crazy.
years.
So
Bears
crazy.
legend Kyrus Tonga. Good for him. It's
He was
incredible.
actually all right this year too, and we
Yeah,
used to talk about how he had potential, but
he was
whatever.
not that great with us.
No,
He was
he
not,
was
who,
horrible.
who was that great with us in that era, really. A seventh round pick, I believe Tonga was. So for a
He
seventh round
was.
pick to be able to come out and make this much money, good for him, man. More power to him. And then Gilman adding into the secondary, good payday for him as well. Chiefs had money to spend, which once again, obviously coming off a down year, Mahomes tearing his ACL didn't make the playoffs, and they haven't been in that spot in a while. And they before are where they're at now in the draft. They have two first round picks. They're picking in relatively high slots, different territory for them, but still for a team that's typically competitive with firepower on their roster, you don't really have that much money to really spend, and they did in this spot. Vegas gave out some really interesting contracts. It starts at the top with Jalen Naylor, 35 million over 3 years. I have him in Beaverfest. You texted me the morning of that contract. We talked about potentially making some sort of move, and I messaged you in the afternoon. I said, "Hey, he just signed a you." I told you. I think I broke the news to you that you didn't even realize he signed this contract. I'm like, listen, normally I'd entertain a deal, but if they're giving him this much money, there's got to be a plan for Jalen Naylor here. I don't think you can just give him this much money and not have him in the fold.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. The other thing is I don't remember who posted it. It was after the deal went down though that his like advanced separation stats and all the nerd guys who sit behind computers, everything says that Jalen Naylor is a good wide receiver too. We'll see if that's actuality now that I mean the Raiders have nobody. That wide receiver core is horrific. Trey Tucker, Jalen Naylor, and Jack Besh, but is Jack Besh even any good? He
We
could
didn't see
easy
anything from him last year.
he'll probably be replaced this draft, I'd imagine. It would not shock me at all if they go Mendoza at 1 and Surratt at 33. That would not shock me whatsoever. That would take out everything that Jack Besh. Literally, Surratt is just a better Jack Besh. It'll be interesting to see what Naylor is able to do. I guess is the de facto wide receiver 1 right now. Um,
Hey, don't forget about Dante Thornton.
yeah, right, Dante Thornton. That sounds like something that Matt would be celebrating. But anyways, yeah, it's a lot of money for a guy who's unproven, but only 23 guaranteed, really like a 2-year deal. We'll see what happens. I'm intrigued by it to say the least. I don't know if it'll work out because he's, like I said, the de facto wide receiver 1, but I'm certainly intrigued to see if those advanced metrics or whatever the hell actually hold any merit.
Vegas won the Tyler Linderbaum sweepstakes. That's a lot of money. And I know as we keep mentioning as Bears fans, the center position unfortunately opened up. And the initial thought was go pay Linderbaum, do whatever it takes. Yeah, that was never. If this was the competitive offer, what we were competing against, this was never going to happen in 100 million years. That's insane. If you would have said 4 years for that amount, I would have said sure, reasonable. Three, that's dude, that's nuts. I still can't believe they gave him that much money over 3 years. The defense as well, JP. I'll let you talk about Linderbaum too, but Vegas very similar spot to Tennessee. They had the money to spend, and boy did they spend it. They spent nearly $50 million guaranteed on two linebackers alone.
Yeah, just briefly, I don't have as much to say about Linderbaum. Highest contract to a center in the history of football. Great player, absolute superstar. Happy we didn't pay it.
Yeah.
I think centers are worth more than people value them at, but
Oh, for sure.
I never feel comfortable being the team that's setting the record for money spending. That I don't like that at all. Good for the Raiders. They obviously got a true stud now.
It's
And
gonna be
then
great for
yeah,
Mendoza at least.
oh, 100%. That I'm curious though because Powers Johnson clearly is a better center than he is a guard. I'm curious if that makes him, attainable now through the market. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him, especially since this isn't the regime that drafted him. But
Could be a draft day trade too if someone wants to go use that a day three pick instead of drafting a center. They want a guy who's proven it in this league, and in return, Vegas can get a free draft pick out of it, basically. However they want to judge it. What do you make of what they did on the defensive side of the ball between Pay, Walker, Dean, and Stokes? That's a boatload of money.
yeah, I'll quickly run through them all. I think they got Kuntz back on a prove it deal. Great deal for the team. They're
I
not
feel
going to
like
win.
he has signed a 1 year. Sorry, I feel like he has signed
This
a
is
one
second
year
year in a
deal in
row. This second
Vegas.
year in a
Yeah,
row. Yeah, this has been it's been 2 years in a row because he keeps getting hurt. If he could just stay healthy, he's going to make a ton of money. He's a great pass rusher opposite of Crosby. I'm going to try not to go on a full rant about these next three. Quiddy Pay is a bum. I really don't understand where all this buzz for Quiddy Pay is coming from. He's a solid run defender and brings nothing as a pass rusher. I've never understood Quiddy Pay hype, even when he was coming out of college. I don't really understand it now. That is way too much money for me, and it's too long. It's too long of a contract for Quiddy Pay. I get he's still young, but that's too much for me. N'Kobe Dean getting less money than Quay Walker, mind-boggling to me. Quay Walker is a bum. Packers fans have been saying he's been breaking out for 5 years, and here we are, and now he's shipped off to Vegas, to the land of forgotten toys. Quay Walker is an absolute bum as well. N'Kobe Dean, good player, good player. Unfortunate situation getting stuck behind Zach Baum. Clearly didn't fit the Fangio style defense. I think he will work out in Vegas. Eric Stokes, another Green Bay bum. I'm noticing a trend here. Another bum from Green Bay. That's fine money, 20 million guaranteed. I don't know if he's their CB1. Let's look at the depth chart real quick. And they have Stokes listed as the CB1. That is why this team is terrible. He should not be your CB1. I love the Dean and Kuhn steals. The other one, too rich for me.
yeah, and the Chargers as well. Following, there's a lot of money given out in this division as a whole. This was a very money heavy spending division in the offseason. Keaton Mitchell coming over from Baltimore. That's solid money there. I cannot believe for the life of me that Charlie Kohler, a blocking tight end, got $24 million over the course of 3 years. He's a fun football player, but blocking tight ends just don't make that kind of money. And that bothers me because I'm not going to, nothing, another grown man making all this money does not bother me. But the fact that that's how the Chargers chose to use said money for this position bothers me. And JPL spin it on you. Oh, never mind. You don't own Oronde Gadsden anymore. I think you gave him to Ty. That's Ty's problem now, right? Never
I
mind. I
do
was
own
going to
Charlie
say,
Kohler, though.
how ironic. Of course. Well, then how do you feel about this? I mean, like I said, he's a blocking tight end who maybe could be a red zone threat within like the 3 yard line.
You know, um, I like Charlie Kohler. I think there's upside as a pass catcher. I feel like there's a couple games every year where he's got about 2 touchdowns, and I know that could be a product of the scheme or whatever. But just quickly glancing over here at PFF, I I can't say I was too familiar with this either, but he only played 22 pass block snaps last year.
Oh,
Played
I
100,
thought he was a pass blocking tight end.
ran
Or is he more of a run
105.
blocker?
Sounds like he's more of a run blocker.
Oh.
275 run block snaps. So yeah, I mean, he was playing about 30 snaps a game, and about 20 of those were run blocking snaps. And then yeah, he'd average about 6 to 10 routes a game.
Would you argue that's even worse then?
I would argue that's 10 times worse. He's not even on the
Yeah.
field when they're dropped back to pass. But anyways, I think there is upside as a pass catcher. I really do. That is why I was able to ship off Gazdin and why I was so quick to go pick up Kohler. I really don't believe that much in Gazdin outside of being a pass catcher. I think Kohler will be now the every down tight end, and Gazdin will be a big slot where Kohler will probably be in pass blocking, but I think he'll be on the field now as the pass blocking tight end, and I think he'll get a fair share of route runs as well.
Couple additions, few additions on the O line. Cole Strange, talk about the most botched first round pick probably in the last decade by the Patriots.
I mean, both of them back to back. That's why I included
Yeah,
both Strange and
Penning was
Penning.
awful too.
That's
I
why I
think Strange
included
is even
both of
worse
them.
though because of the media clip of Sean McVay saying we were scouting him thinking we were going to get him at pick 10 whatever,
Yeah.
and instead the Patriots take him at 29. Just awful. I mean, yeah, Cole Strange still got 9 million guaranteed. Good for him, man. Tyler Biadasz, is it Biadasz? I don't know. I think that's how you say it.
Biadaz.
Biadasz, another guy the Bears could have been in on. Once again, that's probably too much money. And maybe not even the money, the term, 3 years. I don't like giving a center that's not a guy like Linderbaum or Drew Dahlman that much run. 1 to 2 year deals for centers are ideal. Tart getting 30 total as well. Khalil Mack just continuing to re-up on 1 year deals. Disappointed as a Bears fan. We couldn't find a way to make that work. I'm officially putting Dalvin Tomlinson into the Sheldon Rankins. Who was the other guy that we had as
Joseph
well?
Day.
Joseph Day. He's going into that category. I feel like Dalvin Tomlinson has played in the NFL
He
since
might
JP and
actually
I
be
went to
35. He
Eastview
might
Middle
actually
School.
be
Yeah.
35.
Yeah. I feel like Tomlinson's been in the league since JP and I had seventh grade science class together. Like this guy has been playing football, at least in this league, for a good
Okay, he's
chunk of
only
change.
32 too.
How is
We're
that
off.
possible?
We're
That
so
that
off.
that can't be right, man. That just cannot be right. And then you put down here the linebackers, just some depth guys. Denzel Perriman as well, another guy who I feel like has been around the block forever. I don't know. Anything else really excite you about the Chargers? Said they gave out some money to Tart and other guys on the defensive end, and they're just going to keep running it with Khalil Mack until the wheels fall off. It looks.
Yeah, I like the Tart deal. Shout out Ty. I forgot to shout him out on Arden Key, but Arden Key and Tier Tarts were two crucial guys on those good Titan teams that Ty had me watching on a weekly basis. And yeah, I only included the linebackers because it just felt like it when I was looking at the thing, I just saw three linebackers back to back to back, and I was like, okay, I should probably
All
include like
kind of in the
something.
same tier.
Yeah, I was like, I should include something acknowledging them all just to show that they do have linebackers rostered. The only thing I do want to make a note of is yeah, you said it, the Biadaz contract, not for me. He wasn't even that good of a player. I would rather, give up the sixth round pick or whatever for bum Bradbury and 4 mil a year than pay Biadaz 20 million guaranteed, potentially another 10 on the third year. And then yeah, shout out Khalil Mack.
That's awesome stuff. AFC West, a lot of money to be given out. On the other side of this break, we dip into the NFC and the NFC North. I'm going to warn all of you, the North is probably the division, not probably, it is going to be the division we talk about the most here on the Just Beavin podcast. AFC in the books. We now look to the NFC, and of course, we're going to start with the NFC North and our very own Chicago Bears. A decent amount of moves, JP, for the Bears this offseason. Tough to gauge, not having as much financial flexibility, as much room to maneuver in the cap as in previous years, but losing a few guys, trading DJ Moore. We talked about that to Buffalo. Move that was needed, carrying a $28 million cap hit into the season. Tremaine Edmonds cut, other moves made to free up cap without needing to restructure. The Bears still went out and made a couple of solid signings and big splash moves.
Yeah, the one that I was really pumped up about when it happened was Devin Bush from Cleveland. I loved that deal. I think we're getting a guy who just had his best season breaking out in Cleveland, and I think that's kind of a trend here that we're seeing is, these linebackers they're getting picked, and this is why I'm uh very I don't want to say against, but this is why I would not consider Sonny Styles in the top five. And honestly, I wouldn't even consider him in the top 10. we're seeing this with linebackers. Is now the prime for a linebacker is more like 27 to 31, somewhere in that range. It's taking them a while to
Yeah.
acclimate to the NFL, to develop the IQ, when to be in the right zone, when to read the QB's eyes, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what we just witnessed from Devin Bush this past year in Cleveland. Is he finally put it all together? Which, if memory serves me right, he was a former first round pick to the Steelers, and that
Mhm.
was 7 years ago. I don't know what his age is off the top of my head. I'll have to do a quick Google search on Devin Bush age, and then we're sitting at 27. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, we are getting him right now in the prime. He is going to be a stud, and I thought we got him on such a sweet deal. Seeing what Edmonds ended up getting paid, would much rather have Bush on contract.
Yeah, and it's weird to think, right? With a lot of positions, especially we'll just say running back, and running back's kind of an oddity. It's like the earlier the better, the tread is off their tires by the time they hit that 26, 27, 28-year age, and they're only good for maybe a contract following their rookie deal. So it's weird to think that linebacker is a position where they age differently. But I love the Bush signing. I think a big point of emphasis for Ryan Poles, and then looking at Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen, when they were talking about the defensive side of the ball, was getting more physical, getting quicker. Tremaine, he's going to come in for Tremaine. Tremaine was slow. And even coming off the injury, we're not saying Tremaine Edmonds was a bad football player, and we're not saying obviously DJ Moore is a bad football player. Specifically looking at Tremaine, though, what we're paying him and what he's giving us, he's not really fitting what we're trying to achieve in the front seven of being quicker, faster, stronger. And look at Devin Bush, and then you look down at DeMarco Jackson. D-Jack's making 3.25. Bush is making 10 a year. Those two combined are making less than Tremaine's cap hit, or than they're making less than what we got back in letting go of Tremaine Edmonds, saving $15 million against the cap. People have to realize Bears coming off a great season. For these good teams to stay good, what they have to do is they have to make these tough business decisions. They have to use their resources wisely. You can do the restructuring contract route, but that's just kicking the can down the line. That's how teams shorten their windows and get themselves out of it quicker. I liked this signing a lot. This is a guy you mentioned coming off a fantastic year, career year. And once again, Dennis Allen's starting to get his type of players on the defensive side of the ball. And that kind of parallels and parlays perfectly with Kobe Bryant, a guy who's similar, is younger, quicker than Byard, Brisker, plays just a better brand, a better overall game. For people complaining about Wright, Byard, and Brisker walking, watch the 49ers tape from last year. The tackling display
Or
is
the
just
first
putrid.
Packers game.
Yeah, there's a lot of game tape. They were great. Byard's a great leader. Brisker memories, and Nashawn Wright had some big time interceptions, and it was a turnover machine. You can't always rely on the turnover game, man. Things have to get a bit more consistent. This secondary couldn't wrap up. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't finish plays. I love them. Christian McCaffrey, 43-yard run, his longest run of the season. I think I sent this clip to JP on Twitter. He is dragging Deshaun Wright with him for about 20 yards. Being a fan is great, but you have to, along with being a fan, you have to separate yourself and realize what's best for the team and what's best moving forward. You can acknowledge that these guys were great players and you enjoyed watching them and had fun, but when you hold on to guys too long just because of what they've done and you kind of ignore their shortcomings, that's what puts you in a hole. And that's what gives your team really limitations moving forward. I love the Bryant signing. I know some people are iffy on him. He could be a bit of a boomer bust guy in terms of his ability to wrap up, but I think he's just a better overall player and a younger guy as well. We're getting younger at that position. Khalif Raymond, he's basically coming in doing two jobs in one. He's replacing Devin Duvernay and Olamide Zaccheaus as the third receiver. He chose to come to Chicago over Detroit to be a part of Ben Johnson's offense. JP, I want to pick your brain on what you think for Raymond and his role. We haven't seen a lot. He's been kind of more of a gadget guy in Detroit. It feels like he has the assumption that he can come in and be the receiver three. I don't really know. I wouldn't be opposed if the Bears maybe try to get a veteran in the very late waves of free agency, the draft. There are some day three guys that you and I both love. And I think a guy like John A. Walker should earn and deserve some run as well in camp this year.
Yeah, I think the thing with Raymond is 100%. I'm not putting any stock into the Duvernay replacement outside of the fact that I never have to watch him run back a freaking kick return ever again in my life. I think Raymond's going to come in. You're getting a guy who plays well above his size. I think he's 5'9.5", 5'10", maybe. That may be inaccurate as it is, but you're getting a guy who he might have lost a little bit of speed as he's aged, but he is going to block his ass off from the slot. The same way that obviously he's a lot smaller, but the same way that Cooper Kupp, they used to bring him in motion and use him as a tight end to chip on those run plays. Khalif Raymond does that dirty work. He is a dirty okay, I was gonna say he's a dirty player. He's not a dirty player, but he does the dirty work. He's willing to put his body on the line for the team. And that's something that, that's something I felt we were missing on offense last year. Outside of Colson Loveland, it didn't in Kyle Monungai on any given play, but
Two rookies,
Monungai,
you just
yeah,
noted as well.
that's my yeah, exactly. It didn't feel like anyone was out there to lay the boom on anyone. DJ Moore avoided a lot of hits. Luther, even Luther would drop his shoulder, but it felt like everyone was avoiding hits, and even Cole Kmet I felt like wasn't playing very physical, and I think Raymond's going to come in, he's going to set the tone as a blocker, and yeah, he's little, but that doesn't bother me at all. He's going to be the vertical threat, and I'm okay with him as the wide receiver 3, given the other skill sets that we have with Burden. He's kind of your do it all. You got Rome, who I think we kind of know what Rome is at this point. He's a vertical field stretcher, and that's about it. I don't really trust him across the middle of the field anymore. Too many drops. I'm a little scared about that. And I think Raymond will be perfect in the slot as a de facto tight end to come in and block and stretch the field a little bit. And have I mentioned that I never have to watch Devin Duvernay run back a kick again now? And I actually, the money was a little high, but if that's what it took to pry him away from Detroit, I'm perfectly fine
So
with
be
it.
it. Yeah, and you look at the rest. We'll talk Braxton Jones, Jedrick Wills. I like the Jedrick Wills signing. I know he's been pretty awful besides his rookie year, but a guy who's dealt with injury a lot throughout his time in the NFL. And if I trust anyone, it's this offensive staff to maybe try and get a little bit of juice out of him. Braxton injured most of last year and kind of was never fully healthy to come back in. Listen, this Theo injury sucks. The patellar tendon injury sucks. I, for one, am fine not rushing him back at all. I mean, if he's good to go at some point this year, by all means, throw him out there. But I think for the sake of his future, it's probably best if he doesn't play at all in 2026, which is a really hard pill to swallow. But we can't just be thinking about the 2026 Bears. We need to be thinking about 2027 and beyond, because you look at what opens up off the books. You have the ability to get rid of Dio, Grady Jarrett, and Montez Sweat can free up $21 million if they choose to move off him next offseason. Just saying, those are 3 options right there that can get you to $50 million without any restructures next year. Next offseason could be huge for Chicago, and I don't think they want to screw that up in terms of their future. But, you have options. Braxton's familiar with the offense. We've gone about the Garrett Bradbury thing. Listen, man, it sucks with Drew Dalman that he retired, and obviously good for him, in terms of moving on and getting to enjoy retirement. But obviously the show goes on, and for us as Bears fans, it's hard losing one of the key pieces and the unsung heroes of your offense from a season ago. D-Jack, I think that's a great value deal on him. I saw people mocking his contract a lot higher than that. A guy who came in, he wore the green dot in the Philly game and was fantastic. It's a good depth piece, a guy that Downus Allen really liked. Not sure if that's a guy you want to rely on to start, but you may have to, given, Edwards and Sewell still being injured. And then the hometown kid, Jack Sanborn, coming back is pretty awesome as well. So those are just a run through of a few. JP, I'll let you give your thoughts on the remaining free agent signings and can move on to Detroit.
Yeah, I don't have much to add on Wills, Jackson, or Sanborn. I think you covered that well. Even really Bradbury, outside of, he was not even on my radar as someone that I was hoping to target. Hopefully, Ben and them know what they're doing. They said they immediately pivoted to Bradbury when Dahlman hung it up in February, that they knew about it prior to the news breaking officially, and they immediately shifted to Bradbury. So hopefully they know something that I do not, because he was awful last year. Now, I've always been pro Braxton Jones. I think I've made that very evident. I'm on record last year when I believe we did the draft grades. I said that, Ozzie was eventually going to be our starter, but Braxton should be the starter this year. And now Ozzie is hurt. I think Braxton has every capable tool to rebuild his stock as a starting left tackle. I'm excited to see what Braxton can do for us this year.
Yeah, overall, just kind of the signings they needed to make. We'll see what the draft holds, man. It's a big draft. I mentioned acquiring that 2nd-round pick for DJ Moore, and we'll get more into that when we talk about our final mock draft. We'll probably do some Bears specific talk there as well, not just for the first round, for the entire draft. Detroit's the next team in this division who probably made the most moves. Getting in Isaiah Pacheco for under $2 million a year, pretty good value deal on a guy. Granted, 7th-round pick, kind of tapered off a bit at the end of his time in Kansas City, but coming in and maybe not necessarily being the David Montgomery type guy, but filling that role as the complementary back to Jahmyr Gibbs in that offense. I want to hear your thoughts on both Cade Mays and Juice Scruggs. That's a good amount of money to give Mays to come in as a free agent center. And then you're getting Scruggs in that deal for David Montgomery. Scruggs is also a center, but you look at the interior, you look at the guard play of Detroit's offensive line, it's completely different. And even at left tackle, Larry Borom, who we're going to talk about, former Bear, he's on their depth chart right now as a starting left tackle. I don't think that holds. I think that changes through the draft with them losing Taylor Decker. But Christian Mahogany is their left guard. Tate Ratledge is at right guard. This Detroit O-line is in shambles right now, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean Drew Scruggs doesn't really move the needle for me outside of being the name that was thrown in with the Montgomery trade. Cade Mays, on the other hand, it was an interesting route to go. Again, we needed a center. Mays was not someone I had my eye on at all. You're just getting a very volatile player from Carolina. You know, one game Mays looked like he deserved a mega extension, and the next game he was the reason Bryce Young was getting absolutely mauled back there. I'm not overly moved. I understand they got to stop the bleeding quick here if they're going to try and get this team that was, what are we, 2 years removed now from the NFC Championship, or 3 years
Yeah.
removed, but either way, I mean, we're 2 years removed from them going 15-2 and being the number one overall seed. And so, I mean, they're just trying to stop the bleeding. And Brad Holmes was absolutely praised for having those the back-to-back good drafts, and has not done much to sustain the continuity here. I think the Detroit faithful is losing faith fast, and so am I, quite frankly. I believed in Brad Holmes after those back-to-back drafts, and that Stafford trade, that took balls. That took balls to do. I mean, you're trading away a franchise quarterback, and I don't know. I understand they're trying to plug a hole here with Mays, but I'm not sure this is the move to make.
Yeah, I mentioned Larry Borom, 5 million, same amount as Braxton Jones. I don't know about you. I feel a lot better giving Braxton Jones
A
$5 million
hundred percent.
than Larry Borom. And I love Lions fans on Twitter trying to spin this as if getting Larry Borom for them is a good thing. Listen, I watched enough Larry Borom in my life to know that it's not going to be as good as what you guys are thinking. Defensively, DJ Wonham, I feel like that guy, similar to Malcolm Kuntz, is always an edge that is a free agent and constantly signs 1 year contracts. Malcolm Rodriguez doesn't really do much for me. Roger McCreary, a guy who I remember mock drafting years back, and Rock Ya-Sin. I mean, I don't know. None of these defensive names move the needle. It doesn't feel like Detroit did a whole lot. I don't think they had the financial flexibility to do a whole lot.
No, I can't see out of all the defensive guys we've got listed. I really only see what Wanham and McCreary probably starting. Shout out Roger McCreary though, former Titan, was also part of that team with Tart and Key that I mentioned earlier. That Ty had me watching all the time, but honestly, I'm not moved by anything the Lions did, except I do like the money they gave Pacheco. But outside of that, and Wanham for 6 mil, all right, but nothing else really moves me.
I might be thinking of a completely different guy. Roger McCreary, was he Auburn? Is that where he
That'd
went to
be that'd be a
school?
good pull. I honestly can't
I'm gonna
remember.
look this up. I'm just curious because I'm thinking if I'm thinking of the same guy,
Auburn, yeah,
um,
good pull.
look at that. Wow.
All
Sometimes,
all SEC, all American.
yeah, I remember he was a stud in college. I just didn't remember. I wasn't 100% sure where he went. So, yeah, and if we're saying Detroit made the second most in terms of like just quantity of moves, we look at Green Bay, who they didn't really do much at all. Keeping Sean Ryan around 3 year, $33 million contract worth up to 39. Listen, man, for an offensive lineman, keeping him in house and seeing the O line market and edge market, the numbers on that have gone insane. It's not terrible value to bring a guy back like that. Javon Hargrave, from what I've gathered, was very disappointing this past season, and it's a potential good get back deal
All
for him.
those moves that Minnesota made last year that we thought were going to be mega like needle movers were kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, and he stays in division. It's still good money for him, and Green Bay's hoping to get a bounce back there. The Zaire Franklin 1-for-1, Colby Wooden. I didn't really see much in that. Is it St. Juice? Is that how you say his
St.
last name?
Just, yeah.
Yeah. I think they're swinging on value. I mean, we talk about losing all these guys, Stokes and other guys on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're just trying to, take some swings on guys with upside that might need to bounce back and reclimate themselves. And then I threw Sky Moore in here because he'll always be a joke in this league. I took him in the first half of our startup draft 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's just nuts to think it's been that long, but good for him. He actually had a really solid season as a special teamer in return, man, out in San Francisco. But just, I don't know. I don't really have much to say with Green Bay. A lot of these moves are for guys who are trying to rebuild their brand and kind of, get a second life in their career after having really rough seasons this past year, other than the re-signing of Ryan up front.
Yeah, I'll give it to Hargrave. I mean, he was better than Allen, but Allen wasn't very good in Minnesota. So, I mean, take a swing on him if you're Green Bay. You clearly needed DT help towards the end of the year. Everyone could run the ball on you and do whatever they wanted. So why not take a swing on Hargrave? The money really isn't awful for a 2-year deal. And then
No,
St. Juice has had his best year. Honestly, based off last year, they probably got him for a discount, but I can't get the Washington version of St. Juice out of my head, and he was god awful in
he was
Washington.
terrible
So,
there.
so
And those
I
were the years where we played Washington for like three straight. I
three
remember
straight
seeing him.
years, yeah. And so I mean, it doesn't move a whole lot for me, but for that cheap, maybe they found something, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah, and then like I said, we're not just giving them nothing because they're our arch rival. We hate Green Bay more than anything. There isn't much to talk about here. And we kind of hit that all on the head. We'll round out the NFC North with the Minnesota Vikings, who, despite limited number of signings, we have a bit more to talk about here. Is there is a lot of movement in the quarterback room. Their quarterback room this year will now be Kyler Murray, Carson Wentz, and JJ McCarthy. JP, just as Bears fans, and I'll let you kind of throw your thoughts in what to make of this quarterback room in Minnesota entering 2026.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very clear and evident with the contract, the way it was written. No matter what, there's no clause or anything. Kyler Murray is a free agent at the end of this year. There's no team deal. There's no player option. There's absolutely nothing. He immediately goes into the free agent market. I think that says as clear as day that JJ, you're sitting another year. And on top of it, I think this pretty much cements in that we have the best division in football. The argument is there for the AFC West with the Chiefs and the Broncos and the Chargers, but the problem is you still have the Raiders. All four teams in our division are BTAing the Raiders. And then
Yeah.
let alone we can say what we want about the Chiefs. I understand last year might have been a one-off, but we really don't know what the Chiefs are anymore. Adding Kyler Murray to what's already a loaded division, and I know everyone is like so low on Kyler Murray. If 2 years ago the Vikings signed Kyler Murray instead of Sam Darnold, everyone would have lost their minds. I mean, they'd have been predicted to win the division, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think Murray moves the needle a lot for this team, and honestly, the other four moves they made are just whatever. But I genuinely think Kyler Murray puts them into frisky, sneaky Super Bowl team with Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores calling the defense.
It's all about the coaching. I think Kyler's got a really good shot to revive his career here with KOC. So, as hate to admit it, with it, them being a divisional opponent, divisional rival, Kevin O'Connell's one hell of a football coach. I mean, he turned Sam Darnold's career around. He's helped so many guys, and just in general, he's led teams into spots that, honestly, if you look at the rosters he's overachieved with a majority of the groups he's had in Minnesota. Aaron Jones, something to look at. Did not have a great year. I no dealt with injuries this past year, but clearly says something about how badly he wanted to stay in Minnesota, combined with how probably little faith he had in what market could have been available for him this past year, having to move down his salary, nearly cutting it in half from 9 to 5.5 million bones. And then looking at Eric Wilson, like I said, with Wilson and Pierre, can't say I know a whole lot about either one of those guys, but for Wilson, that's a decent chunk of change on a 3-year deal. And Pierre just seems to serve as corner depth. And that's really all I have, lack of signings. And you look at the North, JP said it's going to be probably the top division in football. There's a reason why the four teams couldn't make a lot of moves. They have a lot of money tied down to star players, and they have to adjust on the margin. That's pretty much it. So,
Yeah.
the NFC South, I think this is the division that was probably the most active in free agency because there was the most money to spend. We start right at the top in Atlanta. The Kyle Pitts coming back on the franchise tag, and we are a fantasy football podcast, fantasy football league. Who knows what the song and dance means, especially with the two left-handed quarterbacks, and this I have no idea, GP. I have no idea what to make of all this. Tua is here. Who knows what that means? Him and Penix. I mean, it could get really ugly in Atlanta this year.
Yeah, everything about their offensive moves. I honestly I don't know why they even franchise tag Pitts. They should have either just given him a long-term extension, which maybe they're still working towards, or let him walk, because paying him in the top 5% or whatever the hell the franchise tag equates to, he's not worth that. He just isn't. He has not played up to that at all. And then, yeah, Kevin Stefanski, it's so weird. It's like he just wants to go 6-11 for the rest of his career. The big move they make is to bring in Tua. on a vet minimum, I don't see it working out. I'm not inspired by any of the moves they made, except maybe Aziz Ojolari, and even then, I just don't really think I moved by anything that this team did.
My big takeaway is how many people are going to screw up in fantasy drafts this year when they want to take Bijan and they take Brian Robinson
Brian,
instead, having two B Robinson running backs in Atlanta. Um, yeah, man, it's rough. That's a lot of money for Jahan Dotson, no? I mean,
yeah,
that seems
former
like a pretty
first round
hefty
pick,
penalty.
man.
Yeah, but still, I mean, good for him still getting, a deal worth up to 17 million in
Yeah,
year
no,
$2026. But
that's a ridiculous amount of money to
yeah,
be what a wide receiver too.
yeah, that seems pretty hefty. Olamide Zaccheaus returning to Atlanta after 1 year in Chicago. He really seemed to love it down there, so I'm not shocked that if he was going to leave Chicago, that Atlanta was going to be a spot he had circled. The loan trade they made was for Sidney Brown, which involved a plethora of pick swaps involved there as well. Pretty much a nothing burger, in my opinion. Then yeah, you mentioned it. The Samson Egbuka, we don't. I looked up probably for 10 minutes trying to find the terms of that contract. Unless I was looking in the wrong place, I couldn't find how much his deal is even for. I'm assuming it's the vet minimum for 1 year. And then Ojolari, I'm not shocked, but he's a guy whose name's got some buzz around him. He must have really performed poorly last year if he's getting a deal worth under $1.5 million this season. Falcons are just a weird team, man. They seem like the most mediocre to below average group in the league with how this roster is painted out. I don't think there's going to be much to be excited about in Atlanta this year. There is a lot to be excited about, though, JP, with Carolina making two big investments on the defensive side of the ball. Jalen Phillips, and this is another reason why I think we're okay that the Bears didn't sign an edge rusher. That is a boatload of money for a guy who's had some pretty serious injury history in the NFL.
Yeah, when he's on the field, he's a 1B. He's a 1B, and they paid him like he's a 1A, which is fine. You got to do what you got to do. They needed help pass rushing. I believe so much in Nick Scorton. I think he's going to feast now that Jalen Phillips is there if Phillips stays healthy. But yeah, I mean that is just way too much money for a guy who plays maybe 12 games every year and has what, two ACL tears and an Achilles tear? A lot of money.
Yeah. I feel like the Devin Lloyd value is pretty good there, though. Guy who's a really solid football player. And I know the linebacker market's weird. It's kind of like the running back market on the defensive side of the ball. If you don't want to give too much money, but considering the Bears kind of gave Tremaine Edmonds that deal a few years ago, I feel like Devin Lloyd's a much better football player than Tremaine was at the time of that contract.
Yeah, honestly, he went for a lot cheaper than I thought too. You can completely ignore the 45. Just look at that 25 million guaranteed. I think Tremaine Edmonds is getting like 21 guaranteed from the Giants. So for 4 million more, you get Devin Lloyd. That's a hell of a deal. Great deal for the Panthers there.
Yeah, and I think they very clearly upgraded in the quarterback room behind Bryce Young. I would take Kenny Pickett well before Andy Dalton. No disrespect to the Red Rocket, but he's getting up there in age. And I mean, I'm not saying Kenny Pickett's anything special, but at that point, I'd rather go with the younger guy if we're looking at similar play styles. And that's a decent amount of money to give Pickett, actually. I think that maximum value is dependent on incentives and if he actually has to start it all this season. John Mechie as well. It's nice to see him still in the league and bouncing around. Rasheed Walker could be important to note, staying and get some offensive line depth for this group. And we've mocked Carolina to do a couple of different things. Our last draft had them taking Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, which I'm seeing as a very popular pick now. That may actually be the route they go. And then I love that you threw Travis Gibson in here as well. I can't believe that guy's still in the NFL.
I can't either. I know at one point he was a Titan, so
His
I have not kept
celebration,
up with him at all. But
his sack celebration killed me every time, especially when he would be doing what was it? Was it like Komet where he hit the home run? Or I forgot what he did something goofy, and he would always do it when we're losing by 2 or 3 scores. He was a total dork. But yeah, good for Travis Gibson.
I was convinced Gibson was the next great pass rusher. I had so much faith in him breaking out.
And I remember my radio show in college, we would talk Bears, and he was on the team then. And whenever we would talk Travis Gibson, it's like, yeah, I can get to the quarterback, but man, you'd rather have anybody else out there against the run. The guy
Oh
could
my
not defend
God,
the run
useless. Couldn't
to,
tackle for
to
anything.
save his life. So Carolina, a couple big ads on the defensive end, but offensively, they're pretty set. I'm excited to see what they do in the draft this year. New Orleans, man, they really didn't do a whole lot. A couple of big deals. I think Travis Achan now is what he wants to go by, which I don't know. It feels weird. He's been in the league for this long. We're now learning how to say the guy's last name, but JP, I feel like that's a lot of money for him.
It was. Granted, the guarantee isn't crazy, but that means there's a hell of a lot in incentives. And if he's going to be your starting running back, there's probably a good chance he's going to hit most of those incentives. Yeah, it felt like a crazy overpay. I'm extremely curious now to see what happens with Kamara.
Me too.
Is he officially getting shipped out? Is this the end, or are they just gonna, strictly use him as a third down back, which could be really fun and interesting if that's the route they decide to go. Um, but yeah, it was a little much of an overpay. I remember we were talking about, hey, if we're looking in the running back market, ETN could be an option, and that's a lot of money.
No.
I'm happy we didn't even sniff anywhere near that.
I'm shocked the Saints had this much money to spend, given they've been in cap hell for what seems like the last half decade, if not longer. David Edwards up front, nice to pair with your new running back. They very badly have needed interior offensive line for what seems like 3 or 4 years now. So that's a lot of money to give to a guard, but it's a 4 year contract. So you kind of got to weigh all that out and see that it's a good overall value deal. It's a guy who's going to be an anchor, someone you can rely on to help your run game. Shout out Zach Wilson getting another contract, being a part of yet another NFL franchise, another top three pick in the draft that just has not worked out. Noah Fant, listen, I owned him last year in Beaverfest. He was with Cincinnati, and I mean Mike Gesicki went down. Spelling bee legend Mike Gesicki went down a few times and was dealing with injuries all season. He's a guy who I know they're paying Juwan Johnson a good amount of money to be the tight end there, but if Johnson ever gets hurt, Noah Fant can step in and do a really fine job out there. I think he's a really good number two tight end in this league, and it seems like a lot for a guy who's not your starting tight end, but I think they know the value. And even if they want to run two tight end sets, I think he'll be good out there. And then it's a good amount of money for Caden Ellis, but I can't say I know enough about him to really speak on it. That's a good enough deal in terms of value and it being worth it for this front office.
Yeah, I just want to also give a shout out. I didn't list it here, but if Ty watches this, Dylan Reduns was signed here as former offensive lineman for the Titans that me and Ty used to root for since he went to North Dakota State. We watched him play, so we just thought that was cool, and we used to root for him. But he's absolute buns. But anyways, Ty, Dylan Reduns is a Saint, so
There you have it. Tampa Bay to round out the South. They too only made, oh, wow, they really didn't do anything either. Kenneth Gainwell moving from Pittsburgh, and that running back room is going to be interesting. But we'll talk about Rashad White. He's on to new adventures as well. And I'm pretty sure Sean Tucker's not back in Tampa as well. Why am I blanking on the name of their starting running? Bucky Irving. I can't believe I forgot about Bucky Irving. So it's going to be Irving and Gainwell. Gainwell playing a pretty similar role to what he saw in Pittsburgh. Cade Otton had a really nice season. I think he's carved out a nice role at JP in this Tampa offense. 3 for 30 might seem like a lot for a tight end who's not super flashy, but I feel like he earned every bit of that contract.
yeah, and I think Sadiq early, pre-free agency was being mocked. The Tampa Bay was a potential landing spot for him. Obviously, this money puts that to rest. Although I do still think they could upgrade over Otten, but I understand the continuity and sticking with him for a couple more years.
And then also then too, if the values they're at 15, if they want to focus on the defensive side of the ball, they could have a lot of options on the defensive line. We've had them take an edge rusher in both of our mock drafts that we've put on this channel so far. If you haven't watched those, feel free to go hop over and do so when you're done watching this. Alex Anzalone, not a Lion anymore. That'll be weird to see him in different colors this year. We all joked in our Bears group chat that we wanted nothing to do with him in Chicago, but that's pretty good value for him. And then as well, Al Qadim Muhammad, who worked outside of Aiden Hutchinson last year, getting a $6 million payday. Any thoughts for you on the two old line defenders now coming over to Tampa?
Happy I don't have to see Anzalone anymore, and shout out Qadim Muhammad.
Former Bear, and he was horrible with us. So it's
He
funny
was
that he goes
awful.
over to Detroit and plays some good football. The NFC East, this was probably a bit more of a pop-in division as well with some moves. Want to get your thoughts right off the rip, JP, with Dallas. Javonte Williams getting what seems to be the new standard running back contract on a 3 year deal. DeAndre Swift got it a few years ago, as did Tony Pollard. He gets rewarded on a 3 year, $24 million deal with 16 being guaranteed. So that third year is basically a void year if Dallas wants to cut bait after year two.
Yeah, it clearly he's the running back that fits Schottenheimer's scheme. He looked good. I mean, we'd be sitting here lying to ourselves if we say he didn't look good. Is with the injury history, is he worth 24 million? Probably not, but if you're getting the same player who was healthy all last year, he's worth every bit of that. Might be a little, and the tread on his tires is relatively low from all the injuries. So, I mean, if he can work through the injuries, I think he's worth every bit of the 16 million guaranteed.
The George Pickens situation will be really interesting to monitor throughout the year. He's on the tag, which is going to pay him a really nice salary, but we'll see what his future really holds beyond that. Rashawn Gary, we talked a lot about the defense with Dallas holding picks 20 and 12 in the first round of the draft this year. We've talked a lot about their defense in our mock draft videos. It makes their decision a little bit easier knowing they don't have to take an edge right away by bringing in Gary. What did you think of the return and what they gave up to bring him to Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, for only a fourth round pick, I guess it's fine. You're getting a solid edge two, but that is literally the ceiling with Gary. He brings just about nothing as a pass rusher since his injury, but he's good against the run. And I don't know. It just feels weird. I was never really moved by the Packers defense with when Kenny Clark and Gary were the focal points of it. And now you just take the older versions, more injury riddled version, and bring them to Dallas. They want to stop the run, so I get it. And Kenny Clark just had a career year, so that's nothing against Kenny Clark, but it's everything against Rashawn Gary. I just don't. I'm not moved by Rashawn Gary. They still have no true pass rusher on the outside. They have Williams inside, but you typically don't want your best pass rusher to be a defensive tackle. I'm not overly moved, but if they were going to do something like this, a fourth round pick is adequate. I actually think the Packers got pretty much maximum back what they were gonna get. So I'm okay with the return for both sides.
We talked a lot about the secondary in our draft videos. Kobe Durant, Darion Kendrick, they kind of just seem like band-aids to fix a broken unit. Jalen Thompson getting somebody to play back there. I still think, regardless of these signings, and we kind of talked about it as well, the idea of going edge and corner, some sort of combination might not be a horrible idea. You mentioned with Gary's limitations against the pass that getting a pure pass rusher on the outside might not be a bad route to go in the top 20. We'll break down Philly before we take one last intermission here on the Just Beavin podcast, recapping the free agency of the 2026 offseason. JP, I want to hit you right away with Jordan Davis. Philly's got so many impactful young players on the defensive side of the ball. Howie Roseman's done a great job drafting with his high picks, taking these guys. You have guys like Jalen Carter, Davis, who got the money. Do you find it interesting that Davis is the first guy that gets his payday out of this young group?
Honestly, no, I don't. I think overall, as a play-to-play player, Jordan Davis is more impactful than Jalen Carter. I think Jalen Carter can show up and give you the bigger splash plays, but I think with Jordan Davis, you know you're getting a sound run defender. You know you're getting an elite nose tackle and someone who can apply pressure simply by moving a pocket. Whereas Carter is, more of the finesse guy. He's going to go get you one-on-one sacks. He's going to beat a double team and get a sack. Not really move the pocket. Not as effective against the run. I think this was a lot of money for Jordan Davis, but I think that the Eagles are in a position where they're able to pay that money. They're still trying to win a Super Bowl, and they're still retaining their young players. I actually really like this deal for Philly.
65 of the 78 being guaranteed is definitely relatively eye-popping. We're looking at that contract. Tariq Woolen, I want to kind of talk about this as well. The guy who had kind of a rough go at it to conclude his time in Seattle despite winning a Super Bowl, nearly cost them a playoff game. It's a lot of money to give a guy, granted, a one-year deal. We talk about it in sports, one-year deal. It's kind of a wash with the money, but Philly could be a place where he too kind of gets that lick back and kind of gets his mojo and swag back to get himself a bigger contract next offseason.
Yeah, this just screams Vic Fangio corner. You're getting a long, tall, athletic corner. The only problem with Tariq Woolen is he can't play man coverage, and that's what Fangio does. He quarters the corners into man and lets everyone else zone up. So fully guaranteed 12 mil. That's a lot of money for me. Tariq Woolen's pretty buns, so we'll see. But yeah, like you mentioned, if somewhere could shape him out, it'd be Philly.
Philly's the recipient of Andy Dalton. When we're talking about Carolina, them shipping off Dalton and bring in Kenny Pickett. Elijah Moore's there. Beaverfest legend Johnny Munt has signed a one-year contract in Philly. Dallas Goddard brought back. And I want to talk about Goddard and Brown before we hit our break. Goddard returns, was uncertain about his future. In our first draft, we had Kenyon Sadiq going to Philly. He wasn't there at the second at Philly's pick in our second mock draft. You got to wonder if the Eagles maybe realize Sadiq might not be there for them and they want to have a guy who's been around and knows the offense. Then Marquise Brown, that guy I'm not just saying it because he's on my team. He just needs to find a way to stay healthy and be a part of a good offense because he couldn't just get in his rhythm the 2 years he was with Kansas City.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that he was like a legitimate first round prospect, like worth every bit of a first round pick when Arizona took him in the first. Yeah, yeah, Arizona took him in the first. Okay. For a second, I
Baltimore.
started. Oh, it was Baltimore? Fuck. Okay, that's what I thought. I was going to say back to Baltimore, but I thought it was Arizona. But then they traded for him to pair him with Kyler Murray. That's what happened. Anyways, he was worth every bit of a first round pick, and he just, I mean, he's never lived. He's always been, a number two at best. Yeah, now he's on his fourth team, which is a shame, but
Yeah. And then with Goddard, Fitz there, we know that. And maybe Philly didn't want to tempt fate in the draft. They want to have a tight end locked up and ready to go for the 2026 season. We still got to wrap out the NFC East and get the entire NFC West division before concluding our 2026 free agency recap here on the Just Beavin podcast. Picking up right where we left off, the NFC East and the Washington Commanders. There might not be as many quality deals in terms of guys with multiple years and loads of money. But JP, Washington added quite a bit in terms of notable names, whether from a fantasy setting or like the aforementioned few years with a good amount of money attached to those contracts.
yeah, I don't hate the Okonkwo move. I think your parent David Blau with now he's been influenced by the Ben Johnson side of things and the Cliff Kingsbury side of things. I'm not saying Okonkwo's, a world beater or anything, but he is a insanely good athlete, and I think they could do a lot of fun things with him. The contract that I really love here, and I thought they got on an absolute steal, is who I had as the number two linebacker available in Leo Chenal, 3 year, $24.75 million deal. That's a hell of a good deal for Dan Quinn and the Commanders down there. Chenal is a hell of a linebacker.
Don't get me wrong, and we always relate back to the Bears because that's our team and we can do it. And if you have any opinion on that, you can go kick rocks. We love Devin Bush. It's a great contract, but man, that also would have been a fantastic deal as well with Chenal. You bring back Tunsil, it's a lot of money, but hey, your blindside tackle, who's a guy who's reliable and a quality tackle, a really good one too in this league. You're going to have to pony up. Otherwise, you're back at the drawing board trying to figure out one of the more important positions on the offensive side of the ball. Nick Cross getting some money, and then we land on Odafe Owe. We continue to circle back to the point of edges getting a crap load of money, $25 million a year for Owe. What would you have given him in this market, JP?
Not not $100 million. I honestly would have given him what his guaranteed money is. That would have been the contract with a guarantee of like 52. I would have given him a
You
$68 million deal with a guaranteed of somewhere between 52 and 56. Max, I would have given him, I don't know,
kind of like a Josh
75.
Sweat deal, like a Josh
Yeah,
Sweat deal.
yeah, 3 for 74 or whatever the hell that was. He did just have a career year. So seriously, nothing against the guy. I mean, truly a career year, but he only had 8 sacks. I don't know if that really I'm so caught up right now on I used to be I used to when we were younger and the Bears had fun, good edges, Julius Peppers, old Jared Allen, but they were still effective at getting after the passer. I was always like, okay, like my edges, they got to be able to defend the run. They got to be able to defend the run. Fuck, all we've had for years now are guys who can't rush the passer. All I want is a guy who's going to get me double digit sacks. So I'm so caught up on guys being able to rush the passer that Odafe can do so much. He's great against the run and he's a solid pass rusher. I just feel like he's strictly a number two edge and like a 2B. Like you're okay if he's your two, but you would prefer him to be like a specialist who's your third rotational guy. But $100 million, I don't know. It's a little rich for me.
Listen, man, and I know people are probably going to think, oh, all these guys care about is the money. They don't look at the production. No, we do. But here's the thing. All bets are off when 100 million plus is total money represented. You are then judged on a completely different scale than say, I mean, like the Jalen Phillips contract, just like that 100, what is it, 120?
120.
Like anytime it's north of 100, well, once we get to that range, you're going to get very heavily criticized on total amount of money. Hendrickson was 112. So that those are just three edges right there that got north of 100 million total, not guaranteed, but just what their total contract is worth this offseason. Well, then they turn around, they give a 1 year deal to Chase on, worth 12 million bucks. But that's fine value there. But it's like it's a lot of money invested in that edge position moving forward. Tim Settle, I feel like that's like a nothing burger name, 8 mil a year. That's kind of like the standard range. Guy we didn't talk about for the Bears, Neville Gallimore, who's going to be the new Andrew Billings, kind of got in that range as well for a couple of years.
And
Marcus Mariota,
just
I love that. I love that. That's going to take over consume. Marcus Mariota, I think this is a well-deserved backup quarterback contract. We've mentioned and just kind of glossed over all the backups that have signed or veterans that have signed at the quarterback spot. I think this is a guy who's earned this money. He stepped in and played some pretty solid football for the most part last year for Washington when they need him to. Don't get me wrong, he had his stinkers, he had his moments, but I think this is a guy who the Commanders know they can rely on and continue to be a positive influence for Jaden Daniels.
yeah, I always root for Marcus Mariota. I think anyone who grew up in the same kind of era of college football that we grew up in is always rooting for Marcus Mariota, dating back to the Oregon days.
Can't believe we're using the word era now. People are throwing around that word with us. It's like we're entering our mid 20s. All of a sudden, the word era is being thrown around when we're talking about music and sports and all of those things. And then the final four, we're going to highlight Jake Moody, Bears legend, helped the Bears beat Washington last year with a walk-off kick at FedEx, and then proceeded to sign with the Commanders, finish the year there, and he now appears like he's going to be their kicker entering 2026. Rashad White signing a 1 year deal worth up to $4 million. He hinted right when the season ended, or pretty shortly after, that he was looking to link back up with Jaden Daniels. Those guys were good buddies at Arizona State, so I don't think it comes as a shock to most that he's there. Jerome Ford getting just under $1.5 million, and De'Ami Brown, the lone Jaguar signing that we talked about last year, he returns to Washington as some depth signings on the offensive side of the football. We round out the NFC East looking at the New York Giants. And JP, there really isn't much to talk about with the Giants in terms of what they added and what they brought onto the group this offseason. Isaiah Likely got paid, and Tremaine Edmonds, former Bear, is now going to be out in the Meadowlands.
Yeah, 10 million. We talked about bringing Mooney back for 10 million. I'm so far out on
Pass.
that though.
Yeah.
I'm happy we did not. He's a one-trick pony. The Evan Neal thing is it's just crazy to me that he is now signing for literally the bare minimum. What was he, the
Former
fifth,
first
sixth
round pick,
overall
man.
pick?
Yeah,
Yeah,
top 10 pick in
something
his
like
draft.
that.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's the Edmonds deal. What did we say Lloyd got? Or what did he get? 25 guaranteed? Something like
25
that?
guaranteed, 3 years, 45 total.
See, and Edmonds got 23.7 guaranteed. 10,000 times out of 10,000 times, I'm taking the Lloyd deal. Uh, but anyways, I want to highlight these two signings, Edmonds and McFadden. I know McFadden seems like a nothing burger, but they're clearly committed to the guy. The new staff retained him, which I think sends a message about how they feel about him, which is why I don't think Styles is in play for the Giants at 10 at the 105. And then I do want to highlight the Likely deal
A
simply
lot of money.
because yeah, he's getting paid a lot of money for a guy who was a tight end too, who clearly never was good enough to beat out Andrews. Had he been, they clearly would have made it a priority to keep him and shipped off Andrews while he had value. That is a hell of a lot of money for Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, Ricard coming over with Harbaugh. It's going to be weird seeing him in a non-Ravens uniform setting. Throw out McFadden because you're an IU guy. I'm just going to say I'm sure part of your McFadden, and you made a good point, but I was going to joke around that part of your McFadden speech had to deal with him being a former Hoosier. And Greg Newsom as well, 1 year deal worth up to 8 million, also a Northwest suburb guy. He attended
It is
North
it,
North High School,
it
so
is
shout out to him.
crazy that Newsom at one point was looking like a future superstar with the Browns, and now he's
You know,
getting 8 million.
Northwestern, right? If my
Yeah.
memory serves, he stayed home to go to school. Yeah, the couple
Yep.
of Northwest suburbs guys in the free agent class this year, him along with Alec Pierce, they both got complete opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of how much money they received out in the open market. We wrap things out with the NFC West. This division, I think, was probably the division that did the absolute least out of any division in football. It helps that they had three playoff teams, and those teams didn't really need to make a whole lot of moves. The non-playoff team, JP, the Arizona Cardinals, Mike LaFleur, his first year as the head coach there, and they didn't really do a whole lot. That quarterback room is going to be pretty uninspiring with the combination of Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I've never seen a team throw in the towel this early. They're clearly attempting to have the first overall pick next year. Plus, I really know they're trying to because they want to set themselves up with the worst field position every time they run a kickback by signing Devin Duvernay right there. We'll see if he even survives through camp or not. I doubt he does after they see him run
I'm
back.
shocked he got that much money.
That's mind-boggling. I mean, I don't know what these agents are doing, but there you cannot tell me some special teams coordinator watched film of Duvernay and said, "That's
That's
my
my
guy.
guy.
Bring him here immediately." There's just no chance. He was a good returner prior to the new rules. He has not figured out how to run back a kick with the new rule. That's why the
He
Jags
just
cut him.
runs sideways. He doesn't run straight.
That's why
And
the
that sounds
Jags
like,
cut him. That's why
yeah.
we didn't bring him back.
I hate
Matt
referring
Pryor.
to it like that because it sounds like I'm someone who doesn't watch football when I'm saying he doesn't run straight, he runs sideways. But no, quite literally, he doesn't run up the
No,
field.
he can't. And then when he does decide, it's too late. He sits behind a blocker, he dances, and then he so frustrating, so freaking frustrating. Anyways,
Yeah,
they did sign the goat.
Andrew Billings. I wonder if he's gonna win 97 in Arizona. Good for
I hope
him.
so. I hope so.
Getting another opportunity. Tyler Algier, Falcons fans will miss him. Fantasy owners will not miss him in Atlanta, even though they brought in Brian Robinson. So we'll see how Brian Robinson tries to replicate what Algier did in stealing some touches from Bijan. Isaac Samalo is really the only major contract they gave out in terms of a deal of more than 2 or more than 3 years in north of 10 million per season. This is an Arizona offense that needs a lot of help up front still, despite drafting Paris Johnson Jr. last year. If they weren't picking as high as 3, they'd probably look to go with one of the tackles in this class early on. But because they're picking third, they're likely to go on the defensive side of the ball. David Bailey is currently the guy who we have going there at 3. We'll see what changes. Literally, Billings is the only notable guy that we found important to talk about on the defensive side of the ball in free agency. So this could be another defensive heavy draft for Arizona, even though that appears to be the side of the ball they have figured out more. I don't know how much of a compliment that is, though, considering there's a lot to be desired with this roster as is. Los Angeles, it's all about the secondary. JP already brought up Trent McDuffie. Chiefs now have another first round pick because LA set their first rounder along with many other late picks, and they extended McDuffie in the process. They bring in Jalen Watson, another former Chief, on a pretty hefty deal, and they bring back Cameron Curl. It's something we weren't expecting. Literally the day after we released our first mock draft with the Rams' 13th overall pick that they got from Atlanta, we had them taking Dylan Thieneman, thinking there's no way they're going to bring Curl back, especially after they made the McDuffie trade and they brought in, it helping all the secondary. You figured, oh, safety's a perfect slot in. JP, it appears that LA knew they had a weakness on the back end of their defense, and they really went out and addressed it in every way possible.
Yeah, this team is terrifying on paper. They don't have their worst hole is probably somewhere on the offensive line. I think Coleman Shelton is slated to be their starting center right now, which is honestly probably their only major hole. Although I can't remember who's starting at tackle. It might be Alaric Jackson, which would be another hole. But either way, they have a veteran quarterback who doesn't hold the ball that long, so the line is obsolete to a degree. But my God, I mean, they took the two best corners right out of the Chiefs secondary and plugged them in and brought back Curl. They're going to be in cap hell for a
A
long
long time.
time, but when, not if, when they win the Super Bowl in the next 2 years, one of those two, it'll all be worth it. Two Super Bowls out of Stafford is a hell of a run, and honestly, the money for McDuffie's a lot, and he does his best work from the slot. So I'm curious how they're going to use him. But I thought the Jalen Watson contract was a freaking killer deal. I thought they got him at a nice discount, only 34 million guaranteed. I love that.
So take this for what it's worth. I'll answer both your question on the offensive line and where they're at defensively. This is the ESPN depth chart. Alaric Jackson is listed as the left tackle right now. Steve Avila is the left guard. Coleman Shelton at center. Kevin Dotson, who's been a pretty reliable right guard for them for a handful of
Yeah,
years, is there. Warren McClendon Jr. at right tackle. If there's a weakness on this team, I'd say it's the O line. But like you said, Stafford knows what he's doing back there, and there's enough talent around to kind of hide and limit those mistakes on the O line. Right now, they have McDuffie on the right side playing opposite of Watson, and they have Quentin Lake in the slot. So we'll
that
see
would
how
make
that
sense too.
changes.
Lake
They
was a
have a
bum, but
He's not great, but if you're giving McDuffie that money, you might at least want to give him a shot outside and see if he fits your system there. listen, these guys still have a pick in the first half of the first round,
Yeah.
and that's very
Yeah,
notable.
Atlanta, Jesus.
Yeah, it's that malpractice by Atlanta's front office. I think Terry Fontenot was fired. Yeah, he was because Ian
Yeah, it
Cunningham took
was.
his job. So very rightfully so. Fontenot was fired. Now Matt Ryan's there. Cunningham. There's a whole deal with Bears and comp picks because of that. But thankfully, Atlanta's got a new decision making. I guarantee this regime would not have made that deal last year to give away their first. But LA, it's really choose your own adventure. We've kind of explained that when we've done the mock drafts. I think I had them taking Monroe Freeling in the last mock draft, the guy who's quickly surged up the offensive tackle ranks and up draft boards. That could be a fun project for them, a guy who they can afford to kind of have sit back and learn. And if they feel like he's ready to go in there and be the future blindside tackle for this team, he can do that. They really want to continue to attack the defense. They can really do whatever they want. That's the beauty of being a top three, a top five team in the league is you really can kind of attack BPA. And a lot of teams say they want to draft best player available, but when the Rams say it, they really mean it. This is a type of pick they typically don't hold and one they will not hold for the foreseeable future. San Francisco, the most interesting move to note is the one up top. Mike Evans is no longer going to be with Tampa Bay. JP, this put all of our minds in the Beaver Fest group chat through a blender when we saw this deal go through.
Yeah, I just don't know what to make of it. They're really not a vertical offense, and at this stage in his career, Mike Evans is essentially a back shoulder, throw it deep kind of guy. But like I said earlier, the contract reflects that. I mean, 42.4 million, but only pretty much 1 year guaranteed on that money. Interesting deal because for all we know, he just gave up everything he has in Tampa to move literally across the country, and it could all be over after 1 year.
Not even a full calendar year and 8 months from now, he could
Yeah,
be. Yeah,
it's certainly an interesting deal, but hell, I actually he's a good run blocker still, and I think he adds something to this offense that they've kind of been missing is someone that you can trust down the field to make those kind of catches. You have Pearsall working underneath. I'm interested to see if what they're gonna do. But they brought in Christian Kirk to play the slot, and I think his skill set, the underneath stuff, works well with Evans. The This division is so loaded too. These three teams are all so good. The 49ers are gonna be fun to watch though, and I'm curious to see how they work Evans into the offense.
yeah. Kirk, I think, is an underrated guy. And a big part of it is his health. I get he's a bit older. He's not the same player as he once was, but if he can stay healthy, that could be a sneaky, sneaky weapon for this Niner offense. I'm not even going to try and say Osa's last name, but
Osa
that's
Digizua.
look at you. Better than me about that. They gave him a third round pick, a top 100 pick, so there must be a plan in place. Their interior on the defensive line got kind of shaky at times last year, so I don't blame them at all for trying to nip that problem in the butt right away rather than trying to knock it down in the draft. Drake Greenlaw returns. It'll feel right to see him in a Niners uniform again. And do you want a victory lap your Nate Hobbs take from last year? And do you have another take to add on for Hobbs in this year's edition of this video?
Can you remind everyone what the take was?
He was with Green Bay, or was he Las
Yeah,
Vegas?
he was with Green Bay.
Yeah, I think you just ripped him to shreds and said the
I did.
contract was going to age horribly, and it
And it
did.
did. And it did. And he's on a new team. And this is much more Nate Hobbs money. 4.5 million. Uh, it's fine. It's whatever. He's gonna be a CB2 here, which is perfectly fine. They have um Green on the other side. I forget his first name. Donardo. That's not right, but it's something like that. Um, anyways, they have Lenore. So I'm curious where Hobbs is going to slot in if he even gets a starting job as the nickel, maybe. But I really like the Osa move. The Cowboys gave up on him because they brought in Clark and Williams, which is fine. But I think Osa was truly on the verge of emerging into not a superstar, but a Pro Bowl caliber player. And to get him because the Cowboys obviously don't have room for him anymore for pick 92, I think he's better than anyone you're going to get at pick 92. And I absolutely love that deal. Greenlaw is not anywhere near the same player he used to be. And then shout out former Bears kicker, the most accurate kicker in NFL history, Eddie Pinheiro.
Got a good payday, dude, at Eddie. 10 mil guaranteed over the course of 4 years. To answer your question on the secondary, it is Renardo Green on the opposite side of Lenore. Currently, Upton Stout is listed on ESPN as the starting nickel.
Interesting. So Hobbs
It's
may not even be
obviously,
here come August.
yeah, that's subject to change. I'll quickly spin it for Dallas on the Osa trade. They gave up a fourth round pick to get Rashawn Gary. So in a way, this is kind of like getting draft capital back. trading for that edge, not the same position, but like you said, if he didn't fit into their mold anymore, got a pretty good draft pick out of it at the very least. Kind of basically like you swapped Rashawn Gary for him at the end of the day, and you actually improved your draft stock fourth for a third. Yeah, San Francisco, another one of those teams, playoff team last year, just looking to improve in the margins and find a way to compete in what is going to be one of, if not the toughest division in all of football. We end with and very fittingly, we end with the defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. How about this contract for JSN? Unbelievable. 4 years, nearly 170 million with 120 of it being guaranteed.
Yeah, to quote Matt Hendricks literally today, now granted it wasn't in the fantasy sense, but to quote Matt Hendricks, if you want Jackson Smith and Jigba, you got to pay Jackson Smith and Jigba price, and boy did the Seahawks buck that money up. I mean, ever so deserving of it. The guy just had
Worth every penny.
one of the best seasons we've seen from a receiver in the last decade. Yeah, wow. I was lower on JSN. I had him as the wide receiver 3 in that class behind Flowers and Johnston, and holy shit, could I not have been more wrong. This guy is truly one of a kind, and he's good at every spot on the field. I thought that them bringing in Cup was gonna force him outside, and he was gonna have I said he was gonna have a worse year than he had the year before, and holy cow, was that just so untrue. JSN is a one of one kind of talent. He is so good in every phase of the game.
The 2025 AP NFL Offensive Player of the Year, living up to every bit of that. Bringing home a Super Bowl ring. Joshua Jobe coming back 3 years, 24 mil. Good value there. I mean, they lost a good amount in Seattle on both sides of the ball. So it'll be really interesting to see how Mike McDonald and this group attack the draft. He also lost his offensive coordinator, and Clint Kubiak, going to Vegas. So, I mean, there's no doubt going to the Super Bowl. And I think everyone kind of agreed that Seattle needed to win that game more than New England did. New England wasn't losing their staff. They weren't losing as many players in free agency. And Seattle lost a significantly bigger portion of that group. Bryant, Kenneth Walker, and I'm sure others that I'm completely blanking on right now. And Mafe. And like I mentioned, their offensive guru, their play caller. Now, granted, it's important. They still have the guy who took them there, and Mike McDonald. That defensive mentality is not going to change, but it certainly won't be the same group. Before we get out of here, I want to get your thoughts on this Shaheed contract. This feels like a lot of money for a gadget guy.
Yeah, so I wanted the Bears to get Shaheed. I wanted Shaheed to be the Khalif Raymond, is what I wanted. And I mean, I really hate to even bring this up one more time, but if we could have replaced Duvernay with Shaheed, that'd have been the biggest upgrade in the history of sports. I wanted Shaheed so bad. I would have paid this exact deal. I swear to God, I would have. It's rich for a gadget guy. The thing that confuses me the most is when Shaheed was in New Orleans, there was, one in every 4 or 5 games, Shaheed had 2 touchdowns for 150 yards on 5 catches. Like, he beat the defense. We didn't see that at all in Seattle. It didn't happen. Zilch, nada. I'm a little curious if they're not going to use him outside of end arounds. He's not worth $34.7 million just to run back your kicks and take an end around every game and catch a screen and just take guys up the field. And that's not Sam Darnold's game. He doesn't throw a deep ball, so I get it. I'm not shocked that he stayed. I thought he was going to follow Kubiak to Vegas, and I thought that would have made a lot of sense. But I mean, how are you going to pass up 34.7 million? But he is the best returner in football, and I don't think it's particularly close. I don't think 34.7 million guaranteed is worth the best returner in football, but there's a premium to be paid with the new kickoff rules for a good returner.
And I guess the thought process too, and they knew this when they acquired him. It's hard to get a skill guy to lock down his role mid-season. You know how hard that is to adjust the game plan around that. Maybe their thought process too is they get a full off season to fully rework things. And there's going to be a new offensive mind. Who is their new OC? I totally forgot who they brought in.
Oh boy,
I don't know why I'm blanking right now. I was going to say they obviously have a new offensive coordinator running the show. I want to say they brought someone in from Los Angeles.
Brian Fleury, 49ers run game coordinator.
49ers run game coordinator. So there's going to be a whole new script, a whole new playbook built around this personnel. Guys like Kenneth Walker aren't around anymore. And obviously, if they're giving Sheed this money, they're going to have a plan for him. He's going to be involved because, like you said, he's the best returner in the game, but my opinion, it's not worth all of that money. So Seattle not having a whole lot of money to make moves, especially after giving JSN half of their pay books, but still, and they're another team. They're going to have to nail in the draft. Good teams have to do that moving forward if you want to have sustained success in this league. That is our free agency and trade roundup here for the 2026 offseason. Obviously, more deals to be made. We see a lot of draft night trades. The draft is officially, what is today? Today is Wednesday, April 1st. So draft is officially 3 weeks from tomorrow. Crazy to think with all of our schedules, all the craziness, we are going to do our absolute best to hop on and find a way to get one more mock draft with some trades out to all of you before the draft. It's the best time of the year. And obviously, there are going to be more veterans on the free agent market that'll find homes before camp and all that stuff gets rolling this summer. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Go check out our Instagram account, beaver.fest. There's some pretty exciting stuff going on involving the league this weekend that you're not going to want to miss. Commish, do you have anything to say before we send these people on their fine way here this weekend?
Yeah, just to add on to what Andy said, this is our Fat Panda. For those who are familiar, that is when Drew got on the live stream, like a very very professional businessman, and handled himself accordingly with the rules of society. And Cameron Crook now is going to get on live and handle himself with the utmost respect and authority for those above him and for this world and peace, and it'll be a good time. So everyone should tap in on Friday.
It'll be Friday, and we'll release more details on the exacts when things are going to be all that. Beaver.fest on Instagram. Make sure to stay tapped in, and we will talk to you and see you all then. Until next time, thanks for tuning in to the Just Beaver podcast here on the Beaverfest YouTube channel.